Welcome to the Urban Legends Iceberg, where we'll be deep diving eerie tales passed around on the schoolyard to modern myths that spread like wildfire on the internet. Some of these tales are true, or have a basis in the truth, while other urban legends I'll be discussing are of completely unknown origin. Quick reminder to click like and subscribe and the notification bell. Dublin, Wisconsin, is a captivating urban legend surrounding a supposed town that once existed in the state. The town is said to have mysteriously disappeared in the 1990s, with no trace of its existence on maps or in historical records. However, numerous people claim to remember visiting or hearing about Dublin. According to the legend, Dublin was a small, unremarkable town in Wisconsin until it inexplicably vanished. Some theorize that the disappearance was related to a military experiment gone wrong, linking it to Project ELF, a military communications system that was active in Wisconsin during the late 20th century. Project ELF, also known as Project Sanguine, was primarily concerned with long-range submarine communication, using extremely low-frequency waves. However, conspiracy theories suggest that it might have caused some form of catastrophe leading to Dublin's disappearance. Supporters of the Dublin myth point to memorabilia supposedly originating from the town, such as mugs, t-shirts, and keychains bearing the name Dublin. These items, which sometimes appear for sale online, are viewed by some as evidence that the town once existed. However, upon closer inspection, these souvenirs likely seem to have been created more recently, riding on the wave of interest in the Dublin legend. Another element that fuels the mystery is a photograph purportedly recovered from Dublin. The image, which shows three people seated in a restaurant booth, has faded substantially, adding to its eerie quality. However, like the memorabilia, there is nothing concrete in the photograph that ties it definitively to Dublin. In terms of physical evidence, there are none of the usual traces left behind when a town disappears. Historical examples, like the town of Werner, Wisconsin, which was submerged after a dam project, leave behind remnants such as structural debris or visible geographical changes. Dublin, in contrast, has no such remnants, no ruins, no foundation stones, no documentation, making its alleged disappearance even more peculiar. This absence of physical evidence leads many to compare Dublin to phenomena like the Mandela effect, where groups of people share false memories, often of events or places that never existed. The Mandela effect is central to understanding the persistence of the Dublin story. Named after a widespread but mistaken belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, the Mandela effect occurs when large numbers of people recall events that contradict documented history. In Dublin's case, this could explain why so many individuals remember a town that historical records do not support. Some theorists suggest that Dublin could exist in a parallel dimension or alternate reality that occasionally intersects with our own, giving rise to these shared false memories. Additionally, a Google search quirk adds another layer of intrigue to the Dublin mystery. Users have reported that searches for Dublin sometimes produce results tied to articles about missing persons in Wisconsin, although the town itself is never mentioned in the text. Personally, I can't confirm it, and it's not entirely clear to me whether this is part of the urban legend or something that used to legitimately happen. That said, this belief has fueled speculation that Dublin's disappearance is somehow linked to the unexplained vanishings in the state. However, officially, this connection is the result of an algorithmic quirk rather than any actual historical link, as the articles in question do not reference Dublin directly. Despite the lack of hard evidence, the story of Dublin persists in online discussions, driven by the allure of unsolved mysteries and the human tendency to want to speculate. Theories about government cover-ups, extraterrestrial involvement, or catastrophic military experiments abound, though they are largely unsupported by factual evidence. Super Mario 64, perhaps one of the most widely known and appreciated video games of all time, has been the subject of many fan theories and myths over the years. Among these, the personalization AI theory has become extremely well known in recent years, spawning numerous YouTube videos and online discussions. This theory claims that every copy of Super Mario 64 is uniquely personalized to each player through an advanced artificial intelligence embedded within the game. The personalization AI theory gained significant traction around 2019, primarily through forums and YouTube channels. Proponents of this theory suggest that an experimental AI was implemented in Super Mario 64, capable of subtly altering the game to tailor it to individual players' preferences and behaviors. This AI supposedly makes changes that range from the appearance of characters and levels to the difficulty and gameplay mechanics, making each player's experience unique. Supporters of the theory often cite personal anecdotes and perceived anomalies in the game as evidence. Many players report experiencing different enemy placements, altered level designs, and unique events that they claim are not present in other versions of the game. These discrepancies are attributed to the supposed AI, which customizes the game in a way that aligns with the player's style and preferences. One of the most intriguing aspects of this theory is the idea that the AI can read the player's mind or respond to their thoughts, creating an eerily personalized experience. An important factor contributing to the theory's popularity is the psychological impact of nostalgia and memory. Super Mario 64 was a groundbreaking game for many, and the intense emotions and memories associated with playing it during childhood often blur the lines between reality and imagination. This phenomenon can lead to exaggerated or distorted recollections of the game, reinforcing the belief in a personalization AI. Despite its popularity, the personalization AI theory has faced significant criticism and skepticism. Critics argue that the theory is more likely a result of collective memory and childhood nostalgia than any actual in-game AI. They point out that memory can be highly fallible, especially over long periods, and that the differences players recall are likely due to normal variations in gameplay experiences. Moreover, technical analyses of the game's code have not revealed any evidence of such an AI. Nintendo has also officially denied the existence of a personalization AI within Super Mario 64, asserting that no such technology was ever implemented in the game. This has led many to conclude that the theory is nothing more than an elaborate hoax or a piece of interactive fiction created by the fan community. Another aspect that feeds into the theory is the concept of liminality within the game. Liminal spaces are transitional or transformative spaces that evoke a sense of unease and nostalgia. Super Mario 64 is filled with such spaces, from the empty hallways of Princess Peach's castle to the bizarre and often unsettling textures and environments. These elements contribute to a feeling of otherworldliness that can make the game feel uniquely personal and haunting, further fueling the theory of a personalization AI. Akamanto, also known as the Red Cloak, is one of Japan's most enduring urban legends, often centered around the eerie confines of school bathrooms. The legend of Akamanto likely originated in the mid-20th century, coinciding with the post-war boom in Japan. This was a period when school ghost stories began proliferating, possibly as a reflection of the country's psychological landscape during its rapid modernization. Akamanto is described as a malevolent spirit, typically appearing in the last stall of a public or school restroom. The figure is usually depicted wearing a red cloak and a mask that conceals his face, adding to his mysterious and ominous presence. The mask is particularly significant because it obscures Akamanto's face, which is often described as hauntingly beautiful. This detail suggests a tragic backstory, where the figure might have been a victim of unrequited love or extreme vanity, leading to his demise and transformation into a vengeful spirit. Some variations of the story even propose that Akamanto was a handsome man during his life, who attracted too much unwanted attention and succumbed to the pressures of his admirers. The most chilling aspect of the Akamanto legend is the deadly choice it forces upon its victims. When a person is alone in the bathroom, they are approached by a voice asking, "Do you want red paper or blue paper?" The choices offered by Akamanto are a death sentence regardless of the selection. Choosing red paper results in a death often described as being slashed until one's clothes are stained red. Opting for blue paper leads to suffocation or strangulation, turning the victim's face blue. Attempting to outsmart the spirit by choosing a different color or refusing to answer often leads to even more gruesome fates, such as being dragged to the underworld alive. However, directly telling the spirit that you do not want either paper and telling it to go away is said to work, and the creature will unhappily retreat. Akamanto is part of a broader tradition of Japanese ghosts, a type of yokai known as yurei. These spirits are often connected to specific locations and manifest as a response to human emotions like fear, shame, or guilt. The KFC mutant chicken urban legend is one of the most bizarre myths associated with a fast food chain. It claims that KFC uses genetically modified chickens that are so grotesque that they cannot legally be called chicken. According to the urban legend, this caused the company to have to legally rebrand from Kentucky Fried Chicken to simply KFC to avoid litigation. According to the myth, these mutant birds supposedly have no feathers, beaks, or feet, making them ideal for mass production, but horrifying in concept. This legend has persisted for decades, largely fueled by viral emails, doctored images, and social media posts. The rumor was given a boost in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when the name change to KFC was interpreted by conspiracy theorists as proof of the company's hidden agenda. However, officially, the name was shortened as part of a rebranding effort to shift focus away from the word fried and promote a broader menu, including healthier options. Despite this, the mutant chicken myth refuses to die, largely because it taps into common anxieties about corporate food production and genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. One of the most widespread versions of the myth involves photos purportedly showing deformed chickens, often with exaggerated features such as 6 wings or extra legs. These images are often revealed to be poorly made Photoshop edits. Despite repeated efforts by KFC to address these rumors, including public statements, the legend continues to resurface. The persistence of the mutant chicken myth is due to several factors. One is the natural suspicion many people have toward fast food chains and their food sourcing practices. Modern industrial farming practices are often opaque and legitimately weird and grotesque, leading to concerns about what goes into the food we eat. Further, factory farming provides ample proof that corporations are willing to engage in extremely questionable behavior in relation to the food we consume. This skepticism is amplified when it comes to large corporations like KFC, which serve millions of people every day. The idea of a company secretly using genetically engineered animals fits neatly into a broader narrative of corporate malfeasance and cover-ups. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy taking a few seconds to promote my work. Remember to like and subscribe and also share this video with your friends and family. Sharing the video with your friends and family is one of the biggest ways you can help my channel grow. Also, this is a new series, so leave a comment and let me know what you think, and if you want to see more urban legends videos. In the midst of World War II, the small town of Pascagoula, Mississippi, became the backdrop for a series of unsettling incidents. These events would later be attributed to an individual dubbed the Phantom Barber. The town, which had seen its population swell due to the wartime shipbuilding efforts, found itself grappling with a peculiar menace that targeted the hair of its residents, particularly young girls. The Phantom Barber's activities began on a night in early June 1942, when he first struck at the Our Lady of Victory's convent, cutting locks of hair from two young girls. This initial intrusion set the pattern for subsequent events, where the assailant would cut window screens to enter homes and cut the hair of the occupants while they slept. The town's alarm heightened when these incidents were later accompanied by more violent attacks, including one where a couple was assaulted in their home, escalating the community's fear. Local law enforcement, overwhelmed by the peculiar nature of these crimes, struggled to make headway in the investigation. The FBI was eventually called in, and the town increased its night patrols in a desperate bid to capture the elusive intruder. Amidst rampant speculation and fear, various theories circulated about the barber's motives, ranging from psychological disturbances to espionage-related activities. The case saw a significant development in August 1942 when William Dolan, a chemist known in the community, was arrested. Notably, Dolan had been educated in Germany and was suspected of having sympathies with the enemy cause. Curiously, locals at the time believed that these hair-chopping incidents were an effort to subvert national security, which seems quite suspect in retrospect, and appears to suggest mass hysteria. Although primarily charged and convicted for the attack involving the iron bar, Dolan was also suspected of being the Phantom Barber, largely due to the discovery of a bundle of hair behind his residence. Despite his conviction, doubts lingered about his involvement in all the incidents, and after serving part of his sentence, he was released following a lie detector test that he passed. Notably, some speculate that the Phantom Barber was much more of a phantom than one would initially believe reading the news articles. Under this theory, he was a figment of the imagination of the people of Pascagoula, brought on by the psychological stress of being at war. Further, it is notable that the town grew immensely during the war to accommodate shipbuilding, and as such people were separated from their extended families, causing feelings of dislocation. Some have suggested that this was a perfect storm for mass hysteria to take hold in the town. The story of the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula has since gone on to form the basis of urban legends, recounting the tale with various levels of accuracy. Saki Sanobashi, a supposed anime lost media also known as Go for a Punch, is a chilling story that originated from 4chan in 2015. The tale focuses on a disturbing and grotesque anime that is said to have been released in the late 1980s or early 1990s. Despite widespread searches, no physical copies or definitive proof of its existence have ever surfaced, and it is now widely viewed as an urban legend. The premise of Saki Sanobashi, as described by the original 4chan poster, revolves around 9 teenage girls who are trapped in a bathroom without any exits. The group becomes increasingly desperate as they realize there is no way out, leading them to discuss profound, existential topics while slowly succumbing to despair. Their hunger and hopelessness spiral into madness, ultimately leading to extreme violence and ending by their own hands. The story was introduced as part of an unspecified OVA, original video animation, seen on the darknet, with its poster claiming to have watched it but being unable to find it again. This post caught the attention of the online community, and soon people were trying to locate this supposed lost anime. What makes the legend particularly potent is the hyper-specificity of its details, which lends a veneer of credibility despite the outlandish nature of the content. The combination of psychological horror and the extremely unusual and graphic subject matter appear to have contributed to its virality. Adding to the credibility surrounding it, it plays on themes common in Japanese horror, where isolation and psychological torment are used to magnify horror. Several anime and manga works have been compared to the Saki Sanobashi in an effort to find similarities, but none match the details. In 2019, an anonymous user on Reddit claimed to be the original 4chan poster and confessed that the story was entirely fabricated. However, due to the anonymous nature of 4chan, the Redditor had no way to prove that he had made the original post. The search for Saki Sanobashi has largely dissipated in recent years, with most accepting that it was likely intended as a creepypasta-type fictional story. Despite this, some believe that Saki Sanobashi could still exist, and the urban legend of this extremely dark anime has taken on a life of its own. The Bloody Mary urban legend is one of the most well-known stories told in modern folklore, to the point where I feel the story almost doesn't require an introduction. The legend centers around a ghostly figure named Bloody Mary, who's believed to appear when her name is chanted in front of a mirror under certain ritual conditions. The typical setting involves a dark room, often a bathroom, with the participant standing before a mirror, sometimes holding a candle. They then chant Bloody Mary, anywhere between 3 to 13 times, hoping or fearing that she will appear. Versions of the story differ, but many describe how she will scratch, maim, or even kill those who summon her. The origins of the Bloody Mary legend are difficult to trace because it is an amalgamation of various myths, historical figures, and folklore. One of the most popular theories links the legend to Queen Mary of England, also known as Bloody Mary, due to her slaying of hundreds of Protestants during her reign in the 16th century. This association comes from her blood-soaked legacy, where her opponents were ended in extremely cruel ways. Another possible inspiration for Bloody Mary is the 17th century witch Mary Worth, who was allegedly executed for practicing witchcraft. According to some versions of the story, she kidnapped people to use their body parts for spells, which aligns with certain variants of the legend, where Bloody Mary seeks revenge for the death of a loved one. Yet another historical figure linked to the legend is Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian noblewoman commonly known as the Bloody Countess, or a variety of variants of this nickname. What makes the Bloody Mary ritual so enduring is its simplicity and accessibility. At sleepovers or parties, young people can easily attempt to summon Bloody Mary by following the ritual, often in a bathroom mirror. This accessibility, combined with the fear of an unknown and potential violent outcome, has kept the legend alive for generations. Participants are often warned that Bloody Mary might scratch their face, gouge out their eyes, or drag them into the mirror world, where they will be trapped forever, heightening the stakes. Psychologists have studied the effects of staring into a mirror in a dimly lit room and found that people often experience hallucinations or distortions of their own reflection. This could explain some of the eerie experiences reported during the ritual. Robert the Doll is an interesting haunted doll that has attracted significant attention in recent years. Housed in the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, this seemingly innocuous doll has a long history filled with eerie tales and unexplained phenomena. Robert the Doll was originally owned by Robert Eugene Otto, an eccentric artist from a prominent Key West family. The doll was created by the Steiff Company in Germany and given to Otto as a gift in 1904 by his grandfather during a trip to Germany. Otto quickly formed a deep attachment to the doll, even naming it after himself, and referring to it in the first person as if it were alive. Also, for clarity's sake going forward, I will be referring to the doll as Robert, and the owner of the doll as Jean, his preferred name. The legend surrounding Robert began early. According to local lore, a Bahamian servant girl, who was reportedly mistreated by the Otto family, cursed the doll with black magic. Soon after, strange events started to occur. Jean's parents would wake up to find their son screaming in the middle of the night, surrounded by overturned furniture, which Jean would blame on Robert. As Jean grew older, the doll's activities seemed to intensify. Visitors reported hearing giggles and seeing the doll's facial expressions change. The doll was also said to move on its own, from room to room, and even appear at windows. One notable story involves a plumber who was hired to do some work at the Otto family home. He claimed to hear children's laughter when no one else was present, and saw Robert move from one side of the room to the other. Objects that had been in the doll's lap were found on the other side of the room, seemingly thrown by an unseen force. After Jean's passing in 1974, the house, along with Robert, was sold to a woman named Myrtle Reuter. She kept Robert for 20 years, during which time she experienced similar strange occurrences, including Robert appearing and disappearing within the house. There are several theories about the nature of Robert the doll. Some believe it is possessed by a malevolent spirit, possibly linked to the magical practices of the mistreated Bahamian servant. Under this theory, she imbued Robert with some sort of curse or malevolent energy, allowing the doll to move and act of its own accord. Others think it could be a poltergeist activity, where Jean's emotional energy as a child somehow gave the doll life. Another theory suggests that the stories are a result of the power of suggestion. When people hear about Robert's supposed abilities, they may experience psychosomatic symptoms or attribute everyday mishaps to the doll's curse. In 1994, Myrtle Reuter donated Robert to the Fort East Martello Museum. Since then, the doll has become a somewhat popular tourist attraction. The museum receives numerous letters from visitors asking for forgiveness after allegedly experiencing misfortunes attributed to disrespecting the doll. Museum staff and visitors often report strange phenomena, such as cameras malfunctioning, objects moving on their own, and eerie feelings around the doll. Some even claim to have seen Robert's chest moving as if he were breathing, though no video evidence exists to corroborate these claims. Robert the doll's notoriety has spread beyond Key West. A series of low-budget British horror films loosely based on Robert's story began with the film Robert in 2015, followed by several sequels. The supposed secret of resurrecting General Leo in Final Fantasy VI remains one of the most enduring urban myths surrounding the 16-bit era of gaming. Released in 1994 by Square, Final Fantasy VI introduced players to a rich narrative filled with complex and fairly well-developed characters. One of the most notable characters to feature in the story is General Leo, a noble and honorable soldier of the Gestalian Empire. However, his tragic death at the hands of Kefka during the course of the game sparked countless rumors among fans, who hoped that there might be a hidden way to resurrect him. Leo's death scene is one of the most memorable moments in the game. After playing a critical role in trying to broker peace between the Empire and the Returners, Leo falls victim to Kefka's treachery, a betrayal that highlights the villain's chaotic, evil nature. Many players were emotionally invested in Leo's character, who, unlike other villains within the Empire, was portrayed with honor and integrity. This stark contrast between Leo and the twisted Kefka heightened the sense of loss following his death. As with many iconic video game characters who die, fans of Final Fantasy VI started searching for ways to undo Leo's fate. Various theories emerged over the years, with players proposing intricate methods to bring General Leo back to life. One popular rumor suggested that if certain actions were completed in a specific sequence, players could use the game's Phoenix Magicite, an item associated with resurrection, to revive Leo. This theory seemed plausible because the Phoenix Magicite had a very clear resurrection theme in the game and was also optional and somewhat hard to obtain. Another widely discussed method involved a complex series of steps players were to follow in order to resurrect Leo. These steps included playing through the game without saving, exploiting glitches, and triggering specific events in an exact order. These rumors suggested that Leo's sprite would appear at certain points during the story, and that players could exploit these appearances to somehow keep him in the party. Despite the numerous rumors and elaborate instructions, none of these methods led to a legitimate resurrection of General Leo. Ultimately, despite the best efforts of fans, the only true way to quote-unquote bring back General Leo was by hacking the game with a game genie. The legend of sewer alligators has captivated imaginations for decades, particularly in New York City, where the myth first gained prominence. According to the story, these alligators were once pets purchased by families, especially after trips to Florida, and were later flushed down toilets when they became too large to manage. Supposedly, these reptiles found a way to survive in the underground sewer systems, where they grew to monstrous sizes. The origins of this urban legend can be traced to the early 20th century. A famous incident occurred in 1935, when a group of boys in East Harlem reportedly spotted a large alligator while shoveling snow into a storm drain. The boys hauled the creature up to the street, where it was killed, and its carcass weighed over 100 pounds. This story was widely reported in newspapers like the New York Times and the New York Herald Tribune, which bolstered the credibility of the tale. Also, the newspaper clipping was surprisingly easy to find, thanks to the internet. But I imagine that in the pre-internet days, many people vaguely recalled reading the story. Though it remains unclear whether this specific alligator really lived in the sewers or was an escaped pet, the legend persisted. Further stories from the 1950s added new layers to the legend. These accounts shifted focus to vacationers bringing baby alligators home from Florida. As the reptiles grew, they were flushed into the sewers, where they supposedly thrived on rats and garbage. Variations of the legend even suggested that these alligators turned albino due to the lack of sunlight. These stories, while largely regarded as fabrications, captured the public's imagination and continued to fuel rumors of alligators lurking beneath the streets of New York. Interestingly, the idea of alligators living in sewers isn't confined to New York. Other cities have similar myths, particularly in areas where alligators are native. In Florida, there have been verified instances of alligators being found in drains and sewers, although these are typically animals that have wandered in from nearby swamps. For example, in Tampa Bay, a man reportedly had his arm bitten by an alligator after falling into a drain. The concept of large, aggressive alligators thriving in New York sewers is unlikely to be true, just given the biology at play for these cold-blooded animals. Simply put, alligators require the sun to warm them up, a feature noticeably absent from city sewer systems. The cold, dark environment of a city sewer would not provide the necessary conditions for an alligator to survive long-term. Ultimately, while the existence of full-grown sewer alligators in New York remains unsupported by concrete evidence, the legend will almost certainly continue to persist. El Sombreron is one of the most enduring figures in Guatemalan folklore, known for his distinctive appearance and eerie habits. El Sombreron, also referred to as Cipitio, is often described as a short man dressed entirely in black, with a large hat that covers much of his face. His outfit includes a thick black belt and black boots with noisy attachments. One of his most peculiar traits is his obsession with braiding. He is known to braid the manes and tails of horses, and when no horses are available, he turns his attention to the hair of young women. According to legend, El Sombreron roams the streets with a group of mules carrying coal. He typically appears at dusk, and his presence is marked by the sound of his boots and the sight of his large hat. When he finds a young woman who catches his fancy, he serenades her with a silver guitar, tying his mules outside her home. However, his attention is far from benign. The women he targets often find their food contaminated with soil, making it difficult for them to eat. Further, the eerie serenades are said to make it very difficult to sleep. This combination of serenades and sabotage leads to a state of obsession and illness for the victims. One of the most well-known stories associated with El Sombreron involves a young woman named Susana. Susana, noted for her long hair and large hazelnut-colored eyes, was serenaded by El Sombreron one night while she admired the moon from her balcony. Her parents, alarmed by the attention, forced her inside, but El Sombreron continued to haunt her, singing to her and contaminating her food with dirt. In a desperate attempt to save their daughter, Susana's parents cut her hair and took it to a priest, who blessed it with holy water. This act finally drove El Sombreron away, suggesting that the legend may serve as a cautionary tale. The cultural significance of El Sombreron extends beyond mere folklore and urban legend. He represents the archetypal boogeyman, a figure used to instill fear and promote societal norms. The legend warns young women against engaging with strangers and succumbing to flattery. El Sombreron's black attire and concealed identity emphasize the dangers of hidden intentions and deceitful appearances. The use of black, often associated with misfortune and the supernatural, reinforces his role as a malevolent figure. Interestingly, there are theories suggesting that El Sombreron's roots might extend back to Mayan traditions, where significant value was placed on braids and long hair. Some researchers believe that he may be an adaptation of older indigenous myths, transformed over time to fit the societal contexts of different eras. The Polybius arcade machine is a compelling and mysterious part of video game folklore, wrapped in conspiracy theories and urban legends. The story of Polybius dates back to the early 1980s in Portland, Oregon, where it is claimed that a sinister arcade game caused severe psychological and physical effects on those who played it. The game, named after the ancient Greek historian Polybius, allegedly appeared in arcades in 1981, only to disappear shortly after, leaving behind only disturbing memories. According to the legend, Polybius was no ordinary arcade game. It was housed in an all-black cabinet and reportedly had gameplay that was both mesmerizing and disorienting. Players were said to experience intense psychoactive effects, including nausea, seizures, night terrors, and even amnesia. Some accounts go further, suggesting that players developed obsessive behaviors or suffered from certain thoughts after playing the game. To add to the intrigue, mysterious men in black were said to periodically visit the arcades, collecting data from the machines, not quarters. The game's supposed effects and the involvement of shadowy figures fueled speculation that Polybius was part of a government experiment. Some have speculated that it was possibly related to mind control techniques similar to those explored in the infamous MK Ultra program. Though no concrete evidence links Polybius to such experiments, the association has become a central part of the game's mythos. The first known mention of Polybius appeared in the late 1990s on a website called coinop.org, which documented various arcade machines. The entry described the game and its strange effects, providing the first public reference to its alleged developer, a company called Sinneslotion. This name, which translates from German to sense delete, only added to the game's eerie reputation. However, some skeptics have noted that the German phrase is awkwardly constructed, suggesting it might have been created by someone not entirely familiar with the language. Further complicating the legend is the figure of Stephen Roach, who in 2006 claimed to have been involved in the development of Polybius. According to Roach, the game was created by a small group of developers working for Sinislotion, under contract with an unnamed American company. He asserted that the game was designed to be highly addictive, utilizing innovative graphics and sounds. However, after a young player suffered an epileptic seizure while playing, the game was swiftly removed from circulation, and the project was abandoned. Despite Roach's detailed account, many inconsistencies and a lack of verifiable evidence have led to widespread skepticism about his claims. While most sources state that Polybius is simply an urban legend, some strongly believe that it was the CIA's first foray into using video games for data collection or for mind control purposes. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, located in Midlothian, Illinois, is widely regarded as one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States. The cemetery dates back to the 1830s, when it was established by English settlers from New England. Initially, it served the small community that settled there, including notable early settler Stephen Rexford. The first documented burial was that of Eliza Scott in 1844, although some records suggest William B. Nobles was buried there as early as 1838. Over the years, the cemetery saw numerous burials, with the last known one being Robert Shields in 1989. Bachelor's Grove has garnered a reputation for its paranormal activity, with numerous reports of ghostly apparitions and strange phenomena. The cemetery's remote location, bordered by the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve, adds to its isolated and mysterious atmosphere. One of the earliest reports involves a phantom farmhouse that appears and disappears as visitors approach it. This spectral building has been a staple in the ghost stories surrounding Bachelor's Grove. Among the most famous is the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove, or the White Lady, often seen carrying an infant, or wandering the cemetery aimlessly. This apparition gained significant attention after a photograph taken in 1991 by the Ghost Research Society appeared to capture her image sitting on a stone. Another common sighting is the ghost of a farmer and his horse, believed to have drowned in a nearby pond in the 1870s. Visitors have reported seeing the farmer and his plow emerging from the water, only to vanish moments later. Numerous theories attempt to explain the hauntings at Bachelor's Grove. Some suggest that the cemetery is located on ley lines, which are believed to be paths of spiritual energy. Others attribute the activity to the desecration and vandalism that occurred during the 1960s and 1970s, when the cemetery became a hotspot for occult rituals and teenage gatherings. The combination of these factors might have contributed to the heightened paranormal activity reported there. Visitors have shared a variety of personal experiences at Bachelor's Grove. Some describe peaceful encounters, such as seeing glowing orbs or feeling a sense of calm. Others recount more unsettling experiences, including verbal interactions with spirits or seeing ghostly figures that vanish upon approach. Kanye Quest 3030, released in July 2013, is a hip-hop themed science fiction role-playing game that became known for more than just its gameplay. Players embark on a journey with Kanye West after he falls into a portal to the year 3030, a dystopian future ruled by a clone of Lil B the Based God. In this world, Kanye teams up with other famous rappers to fight for freedom. However, the game's notoriety isn't due to its creative plot or gameplay. In 2015, a player discovered a hidden level by typing "Ascend" into a dialog box, which led to speculation about the game's connection to an alleged real-life cult known as Ascensionism. This secret section presented a narrative that the main game was a facade for a deeper purpose. The game then transitions into a narrative that suggests the main storyline was a cover for this hidden section. involving tasks and QR codes related to the cult. This discovery sparked theories about the game's potential use as a recruitment tool for this cult that believes in reincarnation and sought to expand its membership through the game. Despite these dark undertones, it's speculated that this aspect of the game could be part of an abandoned alternate reality game, or ARG. The creator of Kanye Quest 3030, initially known only as Phoenix, was later revealed to be Clara Hope, an artist from Adelaide. This revelation came from a documentary series which explored the game's mysteries and its creator's intentions. The series shed light on Hope's motivations and the integration of the Ascensionism subplot, initially intended as a separate project. However, despite this admission, the internet urban legend that this game was a real cult recruitment tool continues to persist, fueled by out-of-date YouTube videos. Or perhaps it's fueled by the creepypasta genre generally, where supposed unusual behavior in and around video games is a popular topic. Kanye Quest 3030 is of course one of the few examples where there actually is a deeper and hidden meaning to the game. Lily-san is a popular eerie urban legend amongst children in Japan. The story revolves around a haunted mirror tucked away in a school somewhere. They say that if you stand in front of this mirror and chant, "Lily-san, Lily-san, please come out," 3 times, something unsettling happens. A ghostly figure named Lily-san appears. According to the tale, Lily-san was a young girl who attended school many years ago. Tragically, she was caught in a devastating fire that consumed the building, and she didn't make it out alive. It's said that her spirit became trapped within that very mirror, and now she seeks revenge on anyone brave or foolish enough to summon her. Those who've claimed to encounter Lily-san describe her as a haunting figure with charred skin, her body wrapped in bandages. An intense heat seems to radiate from her, along with the unmistakable smell of something burning, the same fire that claimed her life. As with many urban legends, there are countless versions of the story. Some say that Lily-san will drag anyone who calls her into the mirror, while others believe she simply appears to give them a good scare and move on. In recent years, the legend has gained even more traction online, with people reporting their supposed encounters with Lily-san online. The Fountain of Youth is a legendary spring believed to restore the youth of anyone who drinks or bathes in its waters. It has roots in various cultures, with early mentions in the writings of Herodotus and stories surrounding the medieval king Prester John. The legend particularly gained prominence during the Age of Exploration, becoming most famously associated with the Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León. Ponce de León was a prominent figure in the early Spanish colonization of the Americas. Born in Spain in 1474, he came to the New World with Christopher Columbus on his second voyage in 1493. By 1509, he was appointed governor of Puerto Rico, a position he lost due to political struggles with Diego Columbus, Christopher's son. In 1513, seeking new opportunities, and possibly lured by tales of the Fountain of Youth, he embarked on an expedition that led to the European discovery of Florida, which he named because of its lush, florid vegetation. The association of Ponce de León with the Fountain of Youth is largely a myth that developed posthumously. Contemporary documents and correspondences from Ponce de León's time do not mention the fountain. His expeditions, documented in royal charters, primarily aimed at expanding Spanish territories and establishing colonies. The first notable mention tying him to the Fountain of Youth appeared in a 1535 history, which accused him of seeking the fountain to cure male problems, a likely fabrication meant to ridicule him. The myth gained traction in the 17th century through the works of chroniclers, who included the tale in their historical accounts, albeit as more of a footnote. This narrative was further popularized in the U.S. after the Spanish ceded Florida in 1819, with writers and artists contributing to the legend's image. Despite the lack of historical evidence, the legend of the Fountain of Youth persisted and evolved over the centuries. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, St. Augustine, Florida, capitalized on the myth by promoting a site called the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park. Here, tourists can still drink from the supposed Fountain of Youth. The Fountain of Youth reflects a universal human desire for longevity and vitality. Various cultures have their own versions of healing waters or life-extending springs. In Japan, hot springs, known as onsen, are renowned for their therapeutic properties, while the thermal waters of Bath in England have been celebrated since Roman times for their healing effects. The legend persists, not because of its historical accuracy, but due to its profound resonance with the human yearning for youth and vitality. Gloria Ramirez, dubbed the Toxic Lady, became the center of a medical mystery on February 19, 1994, in Riverside, California. Ramirez was admitted to the emergency room of Riverside General Hospital with symptoms of advanced cervical cancer. However, the situation escalated bizarrely when hospital staff began falling ill after being exposed to her body fluids. On the evening of her admission, Ramirez was extremely ill and confused. Medical staff noticed an oily sheen on her body and a fruity, garlic-like odor that they could not identify. When a nurse drew blood from Ramirez, the syringe seemed to contain manila-colored particles, and the smell emanating from her blood was described as ammonia-like. Shortly after, several staff members attending to Ramirez began to suffer from symptoms like fainting, shortness of breath, and nausea. A total of 23 people became ill, and 5 were hospitalized. The hospital declared a code hazardous material emergency. Ramirez was isolated, and the emergency room was evacuated. Despite efforts to save her, Ramirez died from kidney failure related to her cancer, approximately 45 minutes after her arrival at the hospital. The bizarre incident led to investigations by several agencies, including the Department of Health and Human Services, OSHA, and the California Department of Health and Safety. Initial theories ranged from Ramirez secreting toxic substances due to her cancer or treatments, to mass hysteria among the hospital staff. However, none of these explanations fully accounted for the physical symptoms experienced by the healthcare workers. The official explanation, provided months later by scientists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, proposed that Ramirez had been using dimethyl sulfoxide, or DMSO. They theorized that DMSO in her system might have built up because of her urinary blockage caused by her cancer. Oxygen administered by paramedics could have converted the DMSO into dimethyl sulfone, or DMSO2. Then, in the emergency room, the electric shocks administered during attempts to resuscitate her could have converted DMSO2 into dimethyl sulfate, or DMSO4. This is a highly toxic substance known to cause paralysis, delirium, convulsions, and damage to the heart, liver, and kidneys. However, this theory is entirely dependent upon Ramirez actually using DMSO and an extremely unlikely chain of events. Variants of her story have been repeated for the last 3 decades, embellishments added on each time, contributing to her true story becoming the basis of a popular urban legend. The Bunny Man is an urban legend primarily stemming from incidents reported in Fairfax County, Virginia. This figure is often depicted as wearing a bunny costume and involved in unsavory activities. The first reported sighting occurred in 1970, when a couple encountered a man dressed in a rabbit costume who vehemently protested their presence, claiming they were trespassing. This individual reportedly threw a hatchet through the couple's car window, which was later recovered by the police. The actual hatchet involved in the original Bunnyman incident is still preserved and on display. A similar incident was reported 2 weeks later, involving another couple in the same area. The mysterious figure again appeared in a rabbit costume and purportedly attacked their parked car with an axe. Despite numerous police investigations, no one was ever apprehended, and the case remained unsolved. This lack of closure fueled local folklore, eventually giving rise to the broader Bunnyman legend. These initial incidents were documented in local newspapers, and as the story spread, it morphed into a broader and more sinister narrative. The urban legend gained national traction when the Washington Post began to report on the unusual occurrences. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Washington Post, it's a paper that is local to the area where the Bunnyman incident occurred. However, the Washington Post also has significant national and international reach, likely only behind the New York Times for American newspapers. Subsequent Bunnyman stories varied significantly, with some mentioning the Bunnyman wielding an axe and being generally intimidating, while others described more overtly threatening behavior. Central to the Bunnyman legend is the setting of Clifton, Virginia, and particularly a structure known as the Bunnyman Bridge. This bridge, an overpass located on Colchester Road, became linked to the story due to its eerie and isolated ambiance. Urban legends suggest that the Bunnyman lurks around this area, especially during Halloween. Several theories have been proposed regarding the origins of the Bunnyman. Some suggest that the story might be a conflation of different historical events or misreported incidents. Others believe it may be rooted in the area's history of mental institutions and their historical stigmatization, with the Bunnyman serving as a manifestation of societal fears. Another theory posits that the story could be an exaggerated response to a real person's unusual behavior, possibly exacerbated by the local rumor mill. Rennes-le-Château is a very small village in southern France that has become the source of a very significant urban legend, which inspired a major book and film series. The village itself is picturesque, with narrow streets, stone houses, and a church dedicated to Mary Magdalene. However, it's not only the beauty of Rennes-le-Château that draws tens of thousands of visitors each year, but rather the mystery surrounding a 19th century priest named Bérenger Saunière. In 1885, Bérenger Saunière was appointed as the parish priest of the dilapidated church of St. Mary Magdalene in Rennes-le-Château. Initially, Bérenger was living modestly on a meager salary as would be expected from someone in his position. However, in the years that followed, he began to spend large sums of money on renovations for the church and the surrounding area. This included funding the construction of a large villa. This unexpected wealth sparked rumors and conspiracy theories that continue to this day. One of the most famous theories involves Saunière discovering a hidden treasure. According to some accounts, while renovating the church, Bérenger found ancient parchments that contained cryptic messages or possibly led to a treasure. Some believe this treasure could be linked to the Visigoths or to the Knights Templar, a medieval military order that amassed great wealth prior to losing favor. Adding to the mystery, Saunière's financial records revealed that he had received an astronomical number of requests to say Mass, far more than he could have realistically fulfilled in his life. This led to suspicions that he was involved in simony, the act of selling church favors or sacred things, under the table. The story took a dramatic turn in the mid-20th century when Noel Corbu, a local businessman who bought Saunière's estate, began to publicize the priest's story. Corbu claimed that Saunière had found a treasure hidden by Blanche of Castile, a medieval Spanish princess who became Queen of France in the 13th century. Corbu's tales caught the attention of Pierre Plantard, who linked them to the myth of the Priory of Sion, a secret group purportedly protecting the bloodline of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. This connection was further popularized by the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and later by Dan Brown's novel The Da Vinci Code, which presented an overtly fictionalized version of the theory. Despite numerous investigations and excavations, no concrete evidence of a treasure has ever been found. Many believe that Saunier might have discovered valuable historical artifacts or even documents that he sold to wealthy collectors or the church, but these claims remain unverified. Some historians suggest that Saunier's wealth might have come from blackmailing the church with some potentially damaging secrets, though this theory is also speculative. The allure of Rennes-le-Château is not just in its potential hidden wealth, but also in its historical and mystical connections. Notably, the village is often associated with sacred geometry, ley lines, and other esoteric traditions. These theories, combined with the mysterious life of Saunier, have cemented Rennes-le-Château's place in popular culture and continue to attract researchers, treasure hunters, and tourists. Does Yoshi appear in Pokemon Red and Blue? Back in the 1990s, it was common for kids on the schoolyard to come up with wild stories about how to obtain hidden Pokemon in Pokemon Red and Blue. While some of these rumors did turn out to be true, for instance, how to catch a missing No, a glitch Pokemon from the first generation, most were entirely false. One lesser-known example of this phenomenon is the idea that Yoshi appeared in the Pokemon Red and Blue games. This rumor started in an issue of Expert Gamer magazine and included a guide as to how to evolve a Dragonite into a Yoshi. By way of background, Expert Gamer was a fairly popular video game magazine, published from 1998 to 2001. The magazine was a spin-off of the much better-known Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine, also known as EGM, and was designed with a younger audience in mind. In the April 1999 issue, Expert Gamer magazine provided instructions on how to supposedly get Yoshi, and as usual for these rumors, it is convoluted and difficult. According to this issue, 2 copies of the game were required, Red and Blue, both of which had captured all 150 Pokemon. First, the blue version receives a Dratini from the red version. The blue version then evolves the Dratini to a Dragonite and then trades it back to the red version. The red version then must head to the unknown dungeon and stand closest to where Mewtwo was, and use a Firestone on Dragonite. At this point, the screen will glitch, and Dragonite will evolve into Yoshi. Unsurprisingly, given that this was an April 1999 issue, this was actually an April Fool's joke. To make the joke even more obvious, the hidden Yoshi trick was apparently a fan submission by a reader named J. Esther. Quite a clever wordplay, if I do say so myself. Definitely worth a brief and sensible chuckle. I note that unlike other Pokemon-based rumors, I'm unable to find any convincing evidence that anyone ever believed that Yoshi could be obtained in-game. Celine Delgado Lopez is an alleged missing girl from Mexico who has captivated the internet in the last few years, largely due to her so-called uncanny appearance. Starting in the late 1990s, Canal 5, a Mexican television channel translating as you guessed it, Channel 5 had a tradition of airing a public interest announcement late at night. These segments were dedicated to community service, featuring the names of missing individuals in the hopes that viewers could assist in locating them by reporting any information to the authorities. However, in 2001, one missing persons case stood out: Celine Delgado Lopez, a missing 18-year-old girl. Unlike the detailed profiles of other missing individuals, the only details shared about Celine were her name, age, and the fact that she disappeared in Mexico City, leaving a mysterious gap in her story. The intrigue around Celine Delgado Lopez escalated when viewers reported feeling uneasy and scared upon seeing her photo during the broadcast. Some viewers even allegedly claimed that the television channel would freeze or glitch for a few minutes and then abruptly switch to static whenever her image was displayed. As the rumors evolved, more modern theories suggesting that Celine's nondescript appearance and generic facial expression indicated she might not be a real person, but rather her image was generated by artificial intelligence. This theory prompted further investigation by internet sleuths, which revealed that there were no public records of Celine Delgado's disappearance. Adding to the intrigue, the photograph was broadcast for years after, suggesting she had not been found. There's a whole bunch of potential theories on the Celine Delgado Lopez case. However, the only thing known for certain is that the image of this girl was broadcast in 2001. One theory is that Celine Delgado Lopez is a fictional character, an urban legend that originated from Channel 5. This creation was intended not just to spook viewers, but also to highlight the importance of vigilance and safety for Mexico's youth. Others speculate that Celine Delgado Lopez's persona was also purportedly the result of a hoax, where an individual submitted a fabricated photo and profile to Channel 5. However, the theory that I prefer is that she is likely a real teenager who went missing circa 2001. Her parents submitted her photograph and her name, and the lo-fi, grainy image was simply the result of technology at the time. Further, the lack of updates or any police records could be explained by her being a runaway who returned home to her family. However, unusually, Channel 5 has made cryptic references to Celine Delgado Lopez on their Twitter account, lending weight to the idea that she was a fictitious creation of the TV station. The Red Room Curse, originating from Japan, is an intriguing digital age urban legend that taps into deep-seated fears enhanced by internet culture. Rooted in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the legend speaks of a malevolent pop-up that appears on a user's screen with a disturbing prompt. This pop-up is accompanied by a list of names, including the viewer's own. According to the pop-up, the previous names are the prior victims of the curse, with the viewer's own name being the latest on the list. According to the legend, the individual will then feel an eerie presence looming behind them. This presence will then slowly suck the life out of the individual, with the individual subsequently slowly losing consciousness. Eventually, they will be discovered in their residence, in a room where the walls are covered in red. Historically, the curse is associated with a specific Adobe Flash animation that became popular in the early 2000s. The animation features a scenario where interacting with the curse pop-up leads to tragic outcomes. This narrative quickly spread across the internet, gaining notoriety as it played into the widespread anxiety about the unknown digital territories that were emerging at the time. Despite its fictional origins, the Red Room Curse has been linked to real-life incidents, adding a layer of ominous credibility to the tale. Notably, it was mentioned in media reports surrounding a tragic event in 2004 in Sasebo, Japan, where a young individual was linked to the curse following a grave incident at a Sasebo elementary school. This involved a young girl, referred to as Girl A due to her age, who committed a slaying there. It was reported that Girl A had shown interest in the Red Room Curse animation, with the video bookmarked on her computer. This connection brought significant attention to the legend, merging it with a real-world event and amplifying the public's fear and fascination with the potential dangers of the digital world. Currently, accessing the original webpage is challenging due to the closure of GeoCities and the discontinuation of Adobe Flash. From a psychological and cultural perspective, the curse exploits the potent symbolism of the color red, which is often associated with danger, warning, and prohibition across various cultures. This aspect of the curse is critical as it taps into universal human emotions, such as fear and apprehension, which are amplified in the isolation of one's interaction with the digital world. Hey everyone, just taking another quick moment to remind you to like and subscribe and to share this video. On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and his Mercury Theater on the Air aired a dramatization of H.G. Wells' novel, The War of the Worlds. This broadcast led to what is now known as the War of the Worlds broadcast panic, an event that has since become sensationalized through media and the power of urban myth. The broadcast began innocuously with dance music, but soon transitioned to realistic news bulletins describing explosions on Mars and the landing of Martian spacecraft in New Jersey. The program featured dozens of actors playing news reporters, astronomers, and even government officials, detailing a terrifying invasion by Martians. Despite multiple announcements that the broadcast was fictional, many listeners who tuned in late missed these disclaimers and believed the events were real. This resulted in widespread panic. People flooded police stations and newspapers with calls, seeking information and safety instructions. In New Jersey, the Trenton Police Department reportedly received over 2,000 calls in just a couple of hours. Some listeners even begged the electric company to cut power to prevent the Martians from finding them. The context of the time played a significant role in the reaction. The 1930s were fraught with anxiety due to the Great Depression, the looming threat of war in Europe, and recent national disasters like the Hindenburg explosion. This backdrop of fear made the public more susceptible to believing the broadcast was real. The media frenzy following the broadcast contributed significantly to the perception of mass hysteria. Newspapers, seeing an opportunity to undermine the rising popularity of radio, exaggerated the extent of the panic. They reported dramatic stories of people fleeing their homes, traffic jams, and frantic calls to authorities, weaving these individual incidents into a narrative of nationwide chaos. However, most historians agree that the panic was not as widespread as initially reported, and that the response was amplified by the media. Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater team did not anticipate the scale of the reaction. Welles later expressed both surprise and remorse over the unintended consequences of the broadcast. Despite initial fears that the event would ruin his career, the controversy ultimately benefited Welles, propelling him to fame and leading to a contract with a Hollywood studio. This eventually resulted in the creation of Citizen Kane. The Federal Communications Commission investigated the incident but found no laws had been broken. Nevertheless, the event led to changes in how broadcasts were handled, with networks becoming more cautious about the content they aired. The Koh-i-Noor diamond is a 105-carat diamond and is currently part of the British Crown Jewels. The exact origins of the Koh-i-Noor are unclear, but it is believed to have been mined in the Golconda region of India around the 13th century. The first documented mention of a diamond, possibly being the Koh-i-Noor, comes from the memoirs of Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, in the early 16th century. He described a large diamond that was likely the Koh-i-Noor, which he acquired as a tribute following his conquest of Delhi in 1526. The diamond passed through several hands, including those of the Mughal emperors, the Persian ruler Nader Shah, and the Afghan Durrani dynasty. Nader Shah is credited with naming the diamond Koh-i-Noor, meaning Mountain of Light, when he saw it in 1739. In the early 19th century, the diamond came into the possession of Maharaja Ranjit Singh of the Sikh Empire. His admiration for the gem further elevated its status. After his death, the British East India Company annexed Punjab in 1849 and seized the diamond under the Treaty of Lahore. The Koh-i-Noor was then sent to Queen Victoria and became a part of the British Crown Jewels. However, its initial reception was underwhelming due to its supposedly dull appearance. Prince Albert, Victoria's consort, ordered it to be recut, reducing its size but enhancing its brilliance. Alongside its historical significance, the Koh-i-Noor is believed to be cursed, bringing misfortune to any man who wears it. The curse is thought to have originated from a Hindu text that declared the diamond would bring bad luck to its male owner, but would bless a female owner. Some historical incidents are believed to support this theory. The diamond was part of the Mughal treasury and was owned by several emperors. Shah Jahan, the emperor who built the Taj Mahal, experienced immense personal loss and imprisonment by his own son, Aurangzeb, who then took possession of the diamond. After Nader Shah took the diamond during his invasion of Delhi in 1739, he faced numerous rebellions and was eventually assassinated by his own troops. Further, his empire crumbled soon after his death. The diamond was taken by Ahmad Shah Durrani, the founder of the Afghan Empire. His descendants struggled with internal strife and conflicts, which weakened the empire significantly. Maharaja Ranjit Singh acquired the Koh-i-Noor, but after his death, his empire fell into disarray, and within 10 years it was annexed to the British East India Company. When the diamond came into British hands, it continued to be a source of fascination and controversy. Today, the Koh-i-Noor is displayed in the Tower of London. Its possession remains a point of contention, with claims from India, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, all demanding its return. The British government maintains that the diamond was obtained legally through the Treaty of Lahore. The rumor of a secret cow level in the original Diablo game is one of the most well-known urban legends in video game history, originating from the game's release in 1996. Despite the absence of any such level in the original game, fans speculated that repeatedly clicking on the cows in Tristram would open a portal to a hidden cow level. Other methods for unlocking the secret cow level circulated around high schools, colleges, gaming magazines, and internet forums. These methods for unlocking the level often involved convoluted steps, which would have required an immense amount of time and effort to test. Blizzard Entertainment, the developer, decided to acknowledge and feed into this rumor in a subtle way. The first official nod to the cow level came in Diablo Hellfire, an expansion released in 1997. This expansion pack, as this sort of content was then known, included a hidden quest called Jersey's Jersey, featuring a character in a cow suit, directly referencing the urban legend. However, there was still no cow level implemented into Diablo Hellfire. The cow level rumor was further cemented in Blizzard's lore with the release of StarCraft in 1998, where the cheat code "There is no cow level" allowed players to skip a mission. This code sparked further speculation that the cow level may exist within Diablo 1. The myth became a reality with Diablo 2 in 2000. Players discovered that combining Wirt's Leg, an item found in the game, with a Tome of Town portal in the Herodric Cube, would open a portal to the secret cow level. This level, formerly known by the rather silly name Moo Moo Farm, featured bipedal weapon-wielding cows led by the Cow King. The inclusion of this level delighted fans and showcased Blizzard's willingness to embrace and materialize community-driven myths. Following this, references to the cow level appeared in many Blizzard games. Diablo 3 introduced Whimsyshire, a level featuring mythical creatures like unicorns, and inspired by the absurdity of the cow level myth. Additionally, a proper cow level named Not the Cow Level was added later. World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and other games also made various references to the cow level, showcasing its broad influence and popularity within the gaming community. Despite its popularity, the cow level has been somewhat controversial. Some players and Blizzard developers criticized it for being too rewarding, potentially overshadowing other parts of the game. This debate highlights the balance needed between fun Easter eggs and the core gameplay experience. Shadow people, also known as shadow figures or black masses, are perceived as shadowy humanoid figures that have been reported across various cultures. The concept of shadow people is not new and can be traced back to ancient folklore and religious texts. In many cultures, shadowy figures are associated with the supernatural. For instance, in ancient Egyptian mythology, shadow figures were considered part of a person's soul. Similarly, in Native American beliefs, shadow beings are seen as spiritual entities that exist in a state of balance between light and darkness. Shadow people are typically described as dark, human like shapes that appear at the periphery of one's vision or directly in front. They often lack discernible features, though some reports include glowing red eyes. These encounters frequently occur at night and are sometimes associated with feelings of intense fear and paralysis. One of the most well-known types of shadow people is the Hat Man, a figure seen wearing a brimmed hat and sometimes a cloak. Sightings of the Hat Man are often reported in conjunction with sleep paralysis and have been documented since the early 2000s. Another common narrative involves shadow figures appearing in haunted locations. For example, at the Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, numerous sightings of shadowy entities have been reported by both visitors and paranormal investigators. Many psychologists suggest that shadow people are hallucinations resulting from sleep paralysis. During this state, individuals are partially awake but still dreaming, leading to vivid and often frightening hallucinations. Some theorists propose that shadow people are the astral bodies of individuals who are experiencing out-of-body experiences. According to this theory, what people see are the ephemeral forms of these travelers from another realm. Another theory posits that shadow people are entities from parallel dimensions that occasionally intersect with our own. This idea is supported by the belief in multiple dimensions existing alongside our own, where beings might cross over and become visible as shadows. The dark and often malevolent nature of shadow people has led some to believe they are demonic entities. These figures are thought to feed on fear and manifest to frighten individuals. A more speculative theory suggests that shadow people might be time travelers from the future. In this scenario, their shadowy appearance could be a result of the limitations of their time travel technology, making them visible only as shadows. Skeptics argue that shadow people can be explained by natural phenomena, such as optical illusions, heightened imagination, or environmental factors like electromagnetic fields. They emphasize the lack of empirical evidence and suggest they are caused by the human brain's tendency to perceive patterns in random stimuli. The Midnight Bus, or Bus 375, is one of China's urban legends, believed by some to be based on true events. The story unfolded on the night of November 14, 1995, in Beijing. The last bus of the night, Bus 375, departed from the Yuanming bus terminus, heading towards Fragrant Hills in Beijing. The bus had a few passengers, including an old woman and a young man who boarded together. As the bus continued its route, the driver spotted 3 men waving it down, despite not being at an official bus stop. Upon stopping, 3 men boarded. 2 were supporting a third who appeared disheveled, with his face obscured by long hair. All 3 were dressed in traditional Qing dynasty robes, which the conductor explained as costumes, possibly from actors who had finished filming nearby. As the journey progressed, an eerie silence filled the bus. At one point, the old woman suddenly accused the young man of stealing her wallet. A heated argument ensued, and the driver, attempting to mediate, pulled the bus over. The woman insisted that they get off the bus to resolve the issue. Reluctantly, the young man followed her off the bus. Once off the bus, the old woman revealed her true intentions. she had noticed that the new passengers did not have feet and were floating. Yeah, that's right. This is a ghost bus. The following morning, Bus 375 was reported missing. Days later, it was discovered submerged in the Miyun Reservoir, approximately 100 kilometers from its destination. The bus did not have enough fuel to reach the reservoir, yet it ended up there. The fuel tank was found filled with blood instead of gasoline. The bodies were excessively decomposed for the short time they had been missing, even considering the warm weather. No security cameras recorded the bus's journey to the reservoir. Despite multiple investigations, these mysteries remained unresolved. One popular theory suggests that the story is purely fictional, a modern ghost story designed to entertain and frighten. Critics argue that the lack of concrete evidence in official records supports this view. Another theory posits that the tale is an exaggerated account of a real event, perhaps involving foul play or a tragic accident. Some suggest that the bus might have been hijacked and driven into the reservoir, with the story of ghostly passengers added later to heighten the drama. A more supernatural explanation is that the bus entered another dimension or was cursed, leading to its mysterious fate. The Cursing Stone of Carlisle is a controversial landmark located in Carlisle, England. Installed in 2001 as part of a Millennium Project, the stone is engraved with excerpts from a lengthy curse originally proclaimed in 1525 by Archbishop Gavin Dunbar of Glasgow. This curse, known as the Monition of Cursing, targeted the Border Reivers, a group of raiders and lawless clans who lived along the Anglo-Scottish border. The Cursing Stone is a hefty granite sculpture weighing between over 10 tons, placed in a pedestrian underpass near Tully House Museum in Carlisle Castle. The stone features around 300 words of the original, much more lengthy curse, which called down a series of misfortunes upon the Reivers and anyone associated with them. The origins of the curse lie in the turbulent history of the Anglo-Scottish border during the 16th century. The Border Reivers were notorious for their violent raids, stealing cattle, and causing chaos in the region. The Monition of Cursing was part of a broader effort by the Church and the state to curb these lawless activities and restore order. Priests were required to read the curse aloud in every parish, spreading its ominous message throughout the borderlands. The curse is notably comprehensive, addressing every aspect of daily life and well-being, including the health of people, livestock, and crops. The curse's text is filled with vivid imagery and severe consequences, invoking biblical plagues and divine retribution. It condemns the Reivers in various states of being, standing, sitting, eating, drinking, and extends its malediction to their families and possessions. The Archbishop's curse aimed to disrupt the Reivers' activities and encourage them to abandon their lawless ways. Since its installation, the Cursing Stone has been blamed for a series of misfortunes that have befallen Carlisle, including floods, disease outbreaks, and economic difficulties. Some locals believe the stone has brought bad luck to the city, and there have been calls for its removal or destruction. Despite these concerns, others view the stone as a valuable piece of public art and a reminder of the city's rich history. Despite its grim content, the Cursing Stone has also become a point of interest for tourists and those fascinated by the supernatural. Visitors often touch the stone, sometimes out of curiosity, other times in the hope of lifting any lingering curse. The Silver Train of Stockholm, or Silverpilen, is an urban legend from Sweden. The story of Silverpilen begins in the 1960s when the Stockholm Metro purchased 8 aluminum trains. Unlike the usual green-painted metro trains, these remained unpainted, giving them a distinctive and somewhat haunting silver appearance. These trains were part of the C5 model and were initially used as test units. Due to their bare and stark look, they were not widely popular among commuters and were often used as backup trains during rush hours. A significant part of the Silver Peelin legend is tied to Kimlinga Station. Construction on this station began in the late 1970s, but was never completed due to insufficient demand. Today, it stands abandoned and is often described as a ghost town. According to urban folklore, Kimlinga is the primary station where the Silver Peelin makes its eerie appearances. The local saying, "Only the dead get off at Kimlinga," reinforces its sinister reputation. The Silver Peelin has been the subject of numerous spooky stories. One common legend suggests that once someone boards the Silver Peelin, they might never get off, as the train gets trapped in a time loop, traveling perpetually through the Stockholm metro system. Another version claims that the train appears only once a year at midnight, carrying ghostly passengers who look like the undead. Some tales even suggest that the train can pick up unsuspecting passengers from deserted or unused stations, who then disappear forever. There are various stories from people who claim to have seen the Silver Peelin. These accounts often describe sightings of the train at odd hours, or in places where trains do not usually go. Some narratives recount experiences of being on board the Silver Peelin against their will, traveling for what felt like months, only to be dropped off at Kimlinga, disoriented and bewildered. The rational explanation for these legends ties back to the unusual appearance and limited use of the Silver Peelin. Despite its ongoing spooky reputation, the Silver Peelin was eventually decommissioned in 1996. Parts of the train were repurposed. Some cars were used by the Stockholm Police Academy for training, while others were converted into a cafeteria at the manufacturer's headquarters. However, the stories and sightings persist, keeping the legend of the Silver Peelin alive in Stockholm's collective memory. If you liked this video, please do me a huge favor and click like and subscribe, and also click the share button and send it to anyone who you think may enjoy it. Also, I release content regularly, so remember to click the notification bell and turn on all notifications for my channel. Shout out to my patrons Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Courtney Hammett, Out of Gray's Mind, Cap, Zach Steele, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Meta Nova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemous. The concept of an elephant graveyard is a widely accepted idea among the general population that's believed by most experts to be an urban legend. According to the legend, elephants nearing the end of their lives instinctively travel to a hidden location to die, leaving behind vast quantities of ivory and bones. The myth of the elephant graveyard is often linked to the scramble for Africa in the 19th century, where European explorers and hunters were told of mysterious sites filled with elephant remains. Some stories suggest that the elephants are drawn by a supernatural force to these graveyards, where they die peacefully, leaving behind a treasure trove of ivory. One notable legend places a specific graveyard on or near the base of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. European explorers in Africa may have encountered elephant remains near water sources or other specific areas where the animals tended to gather. The clustering of bones in such places may have been mistaken for intentional burial sites, reinforcing the myth of a designated elephant graveyard. However, natural causes, such as food scarcity and the search for water, are more likely reasons why elephant remains are sometimes found in groups. That said, elephants are known to exhibit a strong connection to their dead, which has further fueled speculation about the existence of graveyards. These intelligent animals have been observed engaging in behaviors that resemble human mourning, such as touching and inspecting the bones of deceased elephants. This sensitivity to death may have contributed to the myth, with some accounts describing how elephants return to the remains of their kin, even after weeks have passed. Some elephant researchers have even gone so far as to suggest that these elephants are engaging in ritual funerary practices, again strengthening the idea of designated elephant graveyards. Also, of course, I have to reference it here. I first came across the idea of an elephant graveyard in The Lion King as a kid, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well. And as a quick editorial note until I researched this topic, I was 100% certain that elephant graveyards were entirely factual. Phil Collins' iconic 1981 song, In the Air Tonight, has been surrounded by a persistent urban legend since its release. This myth revolves around the idea that the song's lyrics narrate a dark and personal experience involving a drowning incident. According to the urban legend, Collins witnessed a man who could have saved someone from drowning, but chose not to intervene. Supposedly, Collins was too far away to actually intervene, but close enough that he saw the entire event unfold. The story goes further, claiming that Collins later invited the man responsible to one of his concerts, pointed him out in the audience, and sang the song directly to him as a form of public shaming. This tale, while dramatic, has no basis in reality, and despite the legend's gripping nature, Collins has repeatedly denied that the song is based on any such event. He has clarified that the song was written during a period of emotional turmoil following his divorce, and the lyrics reflect his feelings of anger and bitterness, not a literal experience. One of the reasons this urban legend continues to thrive is likely due to Eminem's song Stan, featuring a verse that very directly references the myth. Funnily enough, Collins has remarked that people often approach him, believing they know the song's true backstory, only to be disappointed when he tells them it's a work of fiction. The theory that Elvis Presley made a cameo in Home Alone has emerged as a popular urban legend in the last decade or so. This theory revolves around a specific background character in the airport scene where Kevin's mother, Kate, is attempting to return home to her son. In this scene, an extra with a distinctive beard and thick hair stands behind Kate, and some believe that this man is none other than Elvis Presley, who supposedly faked his demise in 1977 under this theory. Elvis theorists have pored over this scene, citing various physical resemblances between the man in question and what Elvis might have looked like had he been alive in 1990. Some go so far as to analyze the movements of the extra, particularly the way he slightly tilts his head, which they claim mirrors Elvis's signature stage mannerisms. Supporters of the theory also draw attention to the broader circumstances of the movie. Director Chris Columbus had directed Heartbreak Hotel just before making Home Alone, a film centered on a group of teens kidnapping Elvis to cheer up their mother. This link seems too convenient for some, who believe Columbus was playfully planting an Easter egg for Elvis fans in his next project. Though the visual similarities are debatable, some people argue that other elements of the scene reinforce their belief. The bearded extra is dressed in a turtleneck, an item Elvis was known to wear frequently, especially in later years when he became self-conscious about his neck. The choice of wardrobe seems significant to those who believe Elvis was hiding in plain sight, covering up features that might otherwise make him more recognizable. Chris Columbus has addressed this theory in various interviews and audio commentaries. He acknowledges that some fans are convinced that Elvis is the man in the background, but he dismisses the idea by stating that the man is merely an extra. Another intriguing aspect of the theory involves the involvement of John Candy, who appeared in the same scene. Candy's character introduces himself as the Polka King of the Midwest, and some believe that placing the Polka King alongside the King of Rock and Roll was a deliberate move by the filmmakers. These small, seemingly coincidental details are seized upon by fans who see them as subtle nods to Elvis's enduring presence. In a 2020 interview, Home Alone cinematographer Julio Macat was asked about the Elvis theory. While he didn't confirm or deny it outright, He mentioned his belief that strange things can happen during filming and that he couldn't rule out the man in the film being Elvis. Personally, I've examined the scene, and I can't fully rule out that the man seen in the scene isn't three cats sitting on each other's shoulders with a CGI overlay. But hey, that's just me. The Pop Rocks and Coke urban legend was widespread on schoolyards in the late 20th century. At its core, the story suggests that consuming the fizzy candy Pop Rocks and following it with a carbonated beverage like Coke could lead to a violent and fatal explosion in a person's stomach. While many versions of this legend circulated, the most famous one involves Little Mikey, a child actor from a popular Life cereal commercial in the 1970s. Pop Rocks are carbonated candy that produces a popping sensation in the mouth when consumed. The candy's unique texture and its tendency to pop created the perfect conditions for myths to arise. Pop Rocks work because they contain small pockets of pressurized carbon dioxide, which is released when the candy dissolves. The myth capitalized on this reaction, falsely suggesting that combining the candy with soda would lead to an overproduction of gas in the stomach, enough to cause an explosion. Parents and children alike began to fear that mixing Pop Rocks with soda could result in serious harm. According to various accounts, the rumor became so widespread that the company responsible for Pop Rocks, General Foods, had to launch a public relations campaign to combat the misinformation. They bought full-page newspaper ads, contacted schools, and even sent the candy's inventor, William A. Mitchell, on a tour to reassure the public. Despite these efforts, sales of the candy dropped significantly, and Pop Rocks were eventually pulled from the market for a period of time in the early 1980s. But let's get back to the specifics of the urban legend that made this story so famous. Adding to the allure of the myth was the association with John Gilchrist, the actor who played Little Mikey. As the legend goes, Mikey consumed Pop Rocks and soda, leading to his demise via stomach explosion. This story spread so quickly and widely that Gilchrist's family was inundated with phone calls expressing condolences. General Foods even tried to use Gilchrist in a commercial to debunk the rumor, but his contract with Life cereal prevented it. Despite the absurdity of the story, it was taken seriously enough that the FDA set up a hotline to answer consumer concerns. Also, before anyone asks, I was listening to the Green Day song Pop Rocks and Coke on repeat while I was researching and writing this section. Looking forward to seeing that one coming back around in my Spotify Wrapped for this year. In Bulgaria, the phone number 0888 888 has gained notoriety for its supposed curse, leading to a series of mysterious deaths associated with its owners. The cursed phone number was issued by the Bulgarian mobile phone company Mobitel. The first notable owner of the number was Vladimir Grashnov, the former CEO of Mobitel. Grashnov, who appeared to be in good health, died in 2001 from an aggressive form of cancer. Rumors suggested that his illness might have been caused by radioactive poisoning, allegedly orchestrated by business rivals. The next person to inherit the number was Konstantin Dimitrov, a well-known Bulgarian mafia boss. In 2003, while dining at a restaurant in Amsterdam, Dimitrov was ended by an assassin. The motives behind his slaying were linked to his involvement in trafficking illicit substances. The coincidence of his violent end further cemented the phone number's deadly reputation. Following Dimitrov, Konstantin Dishleyev, a real estate agent with alleged ties to the criminal underworld, received the number. In 2005, he was slain outside an Indian restaurant in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. After his death, Mobitel decided to suspend the number permanently. Anyone attempting to call it now hears a message indicating the number is outside network coverage. Various theories attempt to explain the curse associated with the number. Some suggest that the number itself is not cursed, but the individuals who owned it were involved in dangerous activities that led to their untimely ends. This explanation posits that the curse is more about coincidence and the high-risk lifestyles of its owners, rather than any supernatural force. Others believe that the number carries an inherent curse, perhaps tied to its string of eights. In numerology, the number 8 is often associated with power and material success, but the addition of a 0 has been suggested to invert this success. Across the world, there are numerous stories of cursed phone numbers. For instance, in Japan, an allegedly cursed number inspired the famous movie series The Ring. On September 27, 2016, an eerie emergency alert system message was broadcast in upstate New York. This unusual message, which included the phrase, "Would you, could you, on a train," appeared during a test on WKTV, a local television station. The message immediately drew attention due to its cryptic nature and the peculiar coincidence that followed. Just 2 days later, on September 29, 2016, a tragic train accident occurred at the Hoboken Terminal in New Jersey. A New Jersey Transit train, arriving from Spring Valley, New York, failed to stop and crashed into the terminal at high speed. The impact led to the tragic loss of one life and injured over 100 others. This incident coincided with the end date mentioned in the EAS message, which added to the mystery and speculation surrounding the broadcast. The crash investigation revealed that the train engineer, Thomas Gallagher, suffered from severe undiagnosed sleep apnea. This condition likely contributed to his fatigue and inability to control the train properly. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded that Gallagher's undiagnosed sleep apnea and fatigue were the primary causes of the accident. The unusual coincidence between the cryptic EAS message and the train crash led to numerous conspiracy theories speculating some sort of foreknowledge of the accident. In the critically acclaimed game Dark Souls, the pendant is one of the most mysterious items, sparking numerous theories and speculations since the game's release. The pendant can be selected as a starting gift or found in several in-game locations, including on a corpse or at the altar in the undead parish if certain conditions are met. Despite its mysterious allure, the pendant's actual in-game function, or lack thereof, has been a topic of much debate and curiosity. When Dark Souls director Hidetaka Miyazaki suggested in an interview that he would choose either the pendant or nothing as a starting gift, it set off a wave of speculation among fans. This statement, coupled with the game's cryptic nature and deep lore, led players to scour every corner of the game for hidden meanings and uses for the pendant. The in-game description of the pendant states it has no effect, but fond memories comfort travelers, which didn't deter players from concocting elaborate theories. Some believed it was an heirloom connected to the game's lore, potentially linked to an extremely obscure character in the game's mythology. Others speculated that the pendant might unlock secrets on subsequent playthroughs or influence in-game events in subtle ways. When the pendant continued to have no effect or do anything, players came up with increasing arcane activities in an attempt to solve the puzzle of the pendant. Adding fuel to the fire, Miyazaki later admitted that his endorsement of the pendant was partly intended as a prank. In a 2012 interview, he revealed that the pendant was meant to play with players' expectations and curiosity. This revelation was met with a mix of frustration and admiration from the fan base, who had invested considerable effort into deciphering its purpose. Despite this, some fans believed that the real prank pulled by Miyazaki was coming out and saying the pendant did nothing, even though it actually did. These players continued to investigate usages for the pendant, but at this point, it appears to be completely accepted that the pendant indeed does nothing. In 1996, workers at the GMC Delphi Interior and Lighting Plant in Anderson, Indiana, encountered an unusual phenomenon small, squid-like creatures in a sludge pit containing a mixture of oil, antifreeze, and automobile parts. These oil pit squids, as they came to be known, were approximately 6 to 8 inches long and grayish-red in color. The workers allegedly managed to capture one of these creatures in a jar, but it mysteriously disappeared soon after. Despite this bizarre sighting, there was little concrete evidence to substantiate the existence of these squids, leading to speculation about their origin and nature. Some have proposed that these creatures could be a type of mutated earthworm or other simple life form adapted to the toxic environment. Others suggested more exotic theories, including the possibility that these are alien entities which are able to live in extreme environments. A more down-to-earth suggestion is that these are an unknown creature from the ocean depths, capable of handling extreme environments. At present, it doesn't appear that there has been any further sightings of this creature past 1996, and as such it appears to likely just be an urban legend. The story of the vanishing village of Lake Anjikuni is one of the most enduring urban legends to come out of Canada's remote Arctic region. Located near the lake in the Kivalik region of what is now Nunavut, the village was reportedly inhabited by a group of Inuit people until one day in November 1930, when they seemingly disappeared without a trace. Joe LaBelle, a seasoned fur trapper, stumbled upon the village while seeking shelter, only to find it eerily deserted. LaBelle, who had been familiar with the village, arrived expecting the usual warm welcome from the Inuit inhabitants. Instead, he found the village completely abandoned. No signs of struggle were apparent. The villagers had left behind food, tools, and even personal belongings, as though they had vanished suddenly and without warning. Fires were still burning, and meals were left unfinished, adding to the growing sense of dread as LaBelle explored the area. Even the village dogs, a crucial part of Inuit life, had been found starved, further adding to the mystery. The events that followed LaBelle's discovery only deepened the mystery. After rushing to report his findings, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police launched an investigation. Although there were reports of disturbed graves in the village's cemetery, with headstones neatly stacked beside them, the RCMP could not determine what had happened to the inhabitants. No footprints or tracks were found, making it difficult to trace where, or how, the villagers might have left. The lack of evidence led to speculation, with some suggesting supernatural explanations. Over time, the story became more fantastical, as theorists tied the story to extraterrestrial encounters. UFO sightings were rumored in the area, with one trapper claiming to have seen a large cylindrical object over the lake, which then shifted into a bullet-like shape before disappearing. Such accounts fueled theories of extraterrestrial abduction, a notion that, though unproven, has fascinated UFO enthusiasts ever since. Despite these far-reaching speculations, the story of the Lake Anjikuni disappearance has never been conclusively explained. Even the RCMP, after an exhaustive investigation, could offer no official explanation. Over the years, details about the population size of the missing village have varied, with some reports claiming that hundreds, even thousands, of people disappeared. However, most sources estimate the village's population to have been closer to 30, casting doubt on some of the more sensational retellings. One possible explanation for the sudden disappearance revolves around a harsh Arctic winter. Some suggest that the Inuit villagers may have left their homes in search of better conditions, but why they would have abandoned essential supplies or left in such haste remains a mystery. Others theorize that the villagers may have been displaced by a natural disaster, though no evidence of such an event has been found in the area. Notably, the modern RCMP has officially dismissed the case as either an exaggerated event based on routine migration of Inuit populations or as a complete fabrication, an urban legend. Further, the RCMP claims that they don't have any records of the event being reported to them, though they do admit that record keeping in the area at the time was spotty at best. Some skeptics believe that the story was entirely made up, with the original story being traced back as far as a near contemporaneous newspaper in Virginia, of all places. That said, Joe LaBelle, the fur trapper, is accepted to be a real person, and the possibility that the story did happen largely as reported remains. Another set of believers believe that the entire thing is a mass alien abduction incident, which was covered up by the Canadian government and the RCMP. This formulation provides a convenient explanation for why no contemporary RCMP records exist of the event. Whether the Lake Anjikuni disappearance is a mass mysterious disappearance, an alien abduction event, or a cleverly crafted urban legend remains to be seen. The image of lemmings mindlessly hurling themselves off cliffs has become an enduring urban legend, symbolizing unthinking conformity to group thought. Lemmings are small rodents found in the Arctic regions of North America and Eurasia. They're known for their fluctuating population cycles, which can lead to sudden increases in their numbers very rapidly. These population booms have fascinated observers for centuries, giving rise to various myths and legends about their behavior. In the Renaissance period, some scholars speculated that the creatures took drastic actions to reduce their populations when their population levels became unsustainable. The modern urban legend of lemmings leaping off cliffs gained significant traction in the 20th century. A pivotal moment in the spread of this myth was the 1958 Disney quote-unquote documentary White Wilderness. In this film, lemmings were depicted in a dramatic scene where they plunged off a cliff into the ocean. The narration suggested that this was a natural behavior linked to population control. The documentary won an Academy Award, lending credibility to its portrayal. Notably, in 1982, an investigative journalism program in Canada called The Fifth Estate aired a program which debunked the movie. In this program, it was revealed that the producers of the film had transported the lemmings to a set location and repeatedly shoved them off a cliff, portraying this as a factual event. The myth was further perpetuated by various media references over the years. For instance, the video game Lemmings, released in 1991, featured small lemming-like creatures mindlessly marching to their doom unless the player intervened. This game popularized the lemming stereotype among a new generation, reinforcing the idea of lemmings as symbols of blind conformity and self-destructive behavior. The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs is a chilling urban legend that has been told and retold over decades, evolving with each iteration. The legend typically involves a babysitter receiving unnerving phone calls that escalate in threat, culminating in the revelation that the calls are coming from inside the house. The tale is believed to date back to at least the 1960s, though it may have earlier roots. One of the most commonly cited inspirations is the tragic case of Jeanette Chrisman, a 13-year-old girl who was babysitting in Columbia, Missouri in 1950. On a stormy night, she faced a terrible fate that has since been linked to this urban legend. The specifics of her story, a young girl, a vulnerable situation, and a home invasion, mirror the core elements of the Babysitter and the Man Upstairs legend. The urban legend has influenced a variety of media and has been adapted into movie form on a number of occasions. These films encapsulate the terror of being watched and the invasiveness of the home being breached, themes central to the legend. The legend also reflects societal anxieties, particularly around the roles and vulnerabilities of teenage girls. Babysitting, a common job for teenage girls, represents a transitional phase of independence and responsibility. Both parents and the teenagers themselves express a certain uncertainty about being in an unfamiliar environment. The story often serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers lurking in seemingly safe environments, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and caution. The urban legend of the headlight flash gang initiation has circulated for decades, particularly in the United States and Canada. This narrative involves a gang initiation ritual, where prospective members drive at night without their headlights on. If an unsuspecting driver flashes their lights to signal that the gang member's headlights are off, it allegedly triggers the initiation rite. According to the myth, the gang member is then required to pursue the helpful driver and slay them as part of the initiation process. The legend first gained traction in the early to mid-80s, particularly during a period when gang violence was a heightened concern in many U.S. cities. The myth often resurfaces in times of societal unease, frequently being shared through chain emails, social media posts, or by word of mouth. Despite its repeated debunking by law enforcement agencies and myth-busting websites, the story continues to spark fear. What makes this urban legend so powerful is its adaptability. Versions of the story have been tailored to local contexts, with specific highways or neighborhoods often mentioned, making the threat seem more immediate and real. The myth taps into the existing fear of crime in big cities and reinforces a sense of vulnerability while driving, an activity that typically represents personal autonomy and safety. It also plays on the basic social instinct to be helpful. Flashing your headlights is a universal signal of goodwill, yet the legend corrupts this simple act into one of life-threatening risk. The death by coconut legend is a classic example of how an extremely unusual and rare occurrence can evolve into a widely believed myth. According to the urban legend, more people are killed each year by falling coconuts than by shark attacks, with the statistic often cited as 150 deaths annually. However, while documented cases of coconut-related deaths do exist, the scale has been exaggerated over time. The origin of this urban legend can be traced back to a 1984 paper titled "Injuries Due to Falling Coconuts," which was based on research conducted in Papua New Guinea. This study highlighted the dangers posed by falling coconuts, noting injuries and fatalities associated with these incidents. The study found that falling coconuts could result in serious injuries like skull fractures, and worse, especially in tropical regions where coconut trees are abundant. However, the study never claimed that 150 people died globally from coconuts annually, and the author was only able to find a few accounts of these events. In 1777, for example, King Tetui of Mangaya in the Cook Islands reportedly lost a concubine when a green coconut fell on her head. However, this case is poorly documented, and some have argued this could be a euphemism for something worse. Other examples include a U.S. Marine who died in 1943 while sleeping beneath a coconut tree on Guadalcanal, and several tragic incidents in Sri Lanka and India. These individual cases, though rare, underscore the potential danger posed by coconuts when they fall from heights of up to 100 feet. Cow tipping, an activity often depicted in pop culture, involves the supposed activity of sneaking up on unsuspecting upright cows and pushing them over for amusement. Cow tipping generally relies upon the assumption that cows sleep standing up, and a group sneaks up on the standing cow during the night, tipping it over. However, the idea that cows sleep standing up, which is central to the concept, is incorrect. Cows actually sleep lying down, not standing up, and they are far more aware of their surroundings than the myth assumes. They can detect threats and disturbances from considerable distances and are capable of waking quickly from sleep. This natural vigilance makes the stealth approach described in cow tipping tales highly improbable. Further, the physical logistics of cow tipping debunks the myth that this is a common or routine event. Cows are large, heavy animals, typically weighing around 1,500 pounds. They have a low center of gravity and sturdy, wide-set legs that provide a great degree of stability. Physically tipping a cow would require immense force, much more than what a few people could generate. One study suggests that it would require up to 6 strong people to exert the necessary force simultaneously. That said, this doesn't mean cow tipping is impossible or has never been pulled off before, but rather that it's not the common rural occurrence that it's often portrayed as. For instance, if you got together the 6 strongest seniors on the local high school football team, I'm betting that the cow, unfortunately, wouldn't stand a chance. Another element of cow tipping suggests that cows meet their demise upon their stomachs becoming entangled during the tipping process. However, there's no indication that the act of tipping these creatures would cause such a stomach tangling issue. This doesn't mean that cow tipping is risk-free for our bovine friends. It's absolutely not. Given their immense weight, if a group was able to tip one over, it would almost certainly sustain fractures. In my view, cow tipping isn't a complete urban legend, much like many of the other topics on the iceberg, but rather the urban legend is how common it is, and the results of tipping the cow. Also calling it now, I'll get a ton of comments from people who will swear their cousin tipped a cow back in the day, but no comments from anyone who actually tipped one themselves. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here. Just reminding you to like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Also, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit the share button and send my video to your friends and family. The myth that Twinkies never rot and could survive the apocalypse has persisted for decades, likely fueled by the snack's remarkable longevity compared to typical baked goods. Twinkies are widely believed to be imperishable, immune to decay, and therefore an ideal candidate for surviving extreme conditions, such as a nuclear apocalypse. Twinkies are made with a combination of artificial and natural ingredients, including sugar, flour, and eggs, but they are also packed with preservatives, such as sorbic acid, that extend their shelf life. Originally, Twinkies had a shelf life of just 26 days, but following a reformulation, this was extended to 45 days. Although 6 weeks is either impressive or disgusting depending on your perspective, it's far from the decades-long lifespan that the myth suggests. The idea that Twinkies can last indefinitely may have originated from a series of curious, informal experiments that were reported on by media outlets. For instance, a Maine teacher allegedly kept a Twinkie on his desk for over 30 years. Though the cake had hardened, it retained its form, seemingly unchanged, sparking rumors of Twinkie's immortality. Another urban legend suggests someone decided to keep a Twinkie out until it showed signs of mold, which allegedly took just over 8 years. Known in Mongolia as Olgoy Korkoy, which translates to intestine worm, the Mongolian death worm is reputed for its deadly capabilities and elusive nature. The creature is described as resembling a cow's intestine, a sausage-like entity, approximately 2 feet long, devoid of a discernible head or legs. Legends assert that mere contact with this being results in instant demise, a claim that underscores the fear and respect it commands within the Gobi's vast landscapes. Historical accounts of the Mongolian death worm date back to the early 20th century, when Western explorers first documented local tales of this fearsome entity. The most notable of these was Roy Chapman Andrews, whose encounters with Mongolian officials in the 1920s revealed a profound belief in the worm's existence, despite no physical evidence. These officials described it minutely, with one even claiming knowledge of a man who had seen the worm and survived to recount his tale. Despite numerous expeditions aimed at uncovering the truth behind this legendary creature, concrete evidence of its existence remains elusive. Notably, Czech cryptozoologist Ivan Mackerly dedicated significant portions of his life to this quest, employing innovative methods inspired by the novel Dune. And when I'm saying a significant portion of his life, Mackerly conducted 3 full expeditions to Mongolia, taking place in 1990, 1992, and 2004. Speculation on the death worm's biological nature has led some to suggest it could be a misidentified or yet to be discovered species. Common speculation includes a type of limbless lizard or skink adapted to the desert's harsh conditions. Others propose it might share characteristics with known venomous creatures, capable of spitting venom or emitting electric shocks to incapacitate its prey or defend itself. Given the vastness and emptiness of the Gobi Desert, and given that there is nothing inherently fantastical about the Mongolian deathworm, some experts believe it could exist. The urban legend about litter boxes being installed in schools has captured the attention of the public in recent years. This myth first surfaced in late 2021 during a school board meeting in Michigan, where a claim was made that schools were providing litter boxes for students identifying as cats. Despite being swiftly debunked by school officials, this rumor continued to spread online and in various communities. Multiple school districts, including those in Michigan, Iowa, and elsewhere, have released statements to clarify that no litter boxes have ever been installed in their facilities. These clarifications, however, have not entirely stopped the spread of the myth, which continues to resurface in various places. One notable example of the legend's impact occurred in Indiana, where a high school social experiment unintentionally contributed to the spread of the litter box story. A group of students fabricated a story about a litter box to illustrate how quickly misinformation can go viral. The experiment succeeded in showing how easily narratives can take hold. However, it also led to confusion and the need for the school to issue an official correction that there were no sanctioned cat boxes. The Simpsons, the longest-running American animated show, has gained a reputation for its alleged eerie ability to predict the future. With its debut in 1989, the show has produced over 700 episodes filled with satirical humor and often touching on real-world issues. One of the earliest examples was in the 1992 episode Lisa the Greek, where Lisa predicts the outcome of the Super Bowl, which came true just days after the episode aired. This pattern of predicting Super Bowl results continued successfully for several years, cementing the show's reputation for prognostication. In the episode Bart to the Future, which aired in 2000, a future Lisa Simpson becomes President of the United States and mentions inheriting a budget crisis from President Trump. This prediction seemed far-fetched at the time, but became reality when Donald Trump was elected president in 2016. In the episode Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling, the characters parodying Siegfried and Roy are attacked by their trained white tiger. A decade later, Roy Horn was attacked by one of their tigers during a live show, leading to the end of their performances. An episode from 1998 featured a sign that read, 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. Nearly 2 decades later, Disney acquired 21st Century Fox in 2017, making this another striking prediction. The episode Lisa's Wedding predicted technology like video calling and smartwatches. Lisa speaks to Marge using a video phone, a precursor to FaceTime, which Apple introduced in 2010. Additionally, the show depicted a watch that could make phone calls, similar to the Apple Watch launched in 2015. Theories about how The Simpsons writers manage these predictions range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some believe it's simply a matter of probability and the law of large numbers. With so many episodes covering a wide range of topics, some are bound to coincide with future events. Some fans believe that the writers have inside information or are time travelers. Others speculate that the writers have a deep understanding of socio-political trends and extrapolate potential outcomes based on current events. However, believers argue that the predictions seem too specific and too numerous to be mere coincidences, and note that other similar shows don't display this pattern. The brown note is a concept often described as an infrasonic sound frequency so powerful that it can induce involuntary bowel movements in humans. This myth suggests that exposure to frequencies between 5 Hz and 9 Hz, well below the audible range for humans, could resonate with the body's internal organs, specifically the intestines. This resonance is said to cause a loss of control over bowel movements. Some have suggested that this physical sensation might explain some of the discomfort associated with powerful bass at concerts or near large subwoofers. That said, no evidence has ever been found to prove that the brown note exists. Infrasound in general can affect the human body in other negative ways. Prolonged exposure to low frequencies, especially at high decibel levels, can cause nausea, disorientation, and discomfort. The Pope Lick monster, deriving from Kentucky folklore, resides near the Pope Lick trestle. This creature, part man, part goat, and sometimes even part sheep, is said to reside beneath a railroad trestle bridge over Pope Lick Creek near Louisville, Kentucky. Over time, it has become a subject of legend, with various stories attempting to explain its existence and malevolent behavior. Some stories suggest the creature is the result of a circus train accident that allowed a freak show specimen to escape, while others propose it might have origins in dark, supernatural forces. Another version posits it as a vengeful spirit or entity tied to the land itself, perhaps an amalgamation of local fears and the human penchant for creating monsters out of the unknown. Other theories propose that it is a local variation of the Wendigo. The legend suggests the creature can use voice mimicry to lure unsuspecting individuals onto the trestle, leading to tragic outcomes. Despite the trestle being an active railway line with heavy freight trains passing multiple times a day, the myth of the bridge being abandoned and safe to explore persists, often with fatal consequences. The physical and psychological danger posed by the trestle, coupled with the monster's lore, continues to attract thrill seekers despite widespread warnings of the very real risks involved. But back to the dangers associated with the Pope Lick trestle. This fictional urban legend unfortunately boasts an extremely real and horrifying body count. The tragic allure of the Pope Lick monster legend has led to several fatal incidents at the Pope Creek train trestle. In 1988, a 17-year-old lost his life to an oncoming train, and another individual was injured in the same attempt to traverse the trestle. 6 years later, a man met his demise after his ATV flipped on the tracks, leaving him stranded in the path of an oncoming train. In 2000, a 19-year-old's life was cut short after he fell from the trestle while hunting the goat man. He was struck by a passing train. Another incident occurred on April 23, 2016, when a 26-year-old woman was struck and killed by a train in her quest for the monster. Her boyfriend narrowly escaped death by clinging to the trestle's edge. The dangers of the trestle were highlighted again on May 26, 2019, when a 15-year-old girl perished at the site. Her friend also suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries in the same incident. While the Pope Lick monster may be an urban legend, the dangers associated with the Pope Lick trestle are clearly very real and well documented. On September 27, 1989, an unusual event allegedly took place in Voronezh, a city in the Soviet Union, involving what many claim to be a UFO sighting. This incident has since become one of the most famous UFO cases in history due to the level of official attention it received. The incident reportedly began when a group of children in Voronezh claimed to have seen a small ball in the sky, which quickly transformed into a disc and landed in Yuzhny Park. From this disc, witnesses described seeing a 9-foot tall, three-eyed alien, accompanied by a robot-like entity. This bizarre event was first reported by the Telegraph Agency of the Soviet Union, TASS, and quickly captured both national and international attention. According to various accounts, the alien exited the craft, used a tube-like device to freeze a bystander in place, and then abducted a 16-year-old boy. Witnesses included not only children, but also some local civil servants who claimed to have seen the craft. The incident occurred during a period of heightened UFO sightings across Russia and the world, which added to the credibility for some and skepticism for others. Following the initial reports, the Soviet media and scientists took an unusual interest in the incident. The Soviet Scientific Commission launched an inquiry into the event, examining the landing site. They reported finding increased levels of the radioactive isotope cesium, though this finding was later downplayed by the vice-rector of the University of Voronezh. Notably, the New York Times reported on the incident, reflecting the global intrigue it sparked. However, skepticism was rampant, with some attributing the event to mass hysteria. Another theory suggests that the Voronezh UFO incident could have been an elaborate hoax. Given the period's heightened interest in UFOs and the Soviet Union's isolation from Western media, some believe that pranksters staged the event to gain attention. This theory is supported by the lack of physical evidence and inconsistencies in witness testimonies. Another angle explores the psychological and socio-cultural factors at play. The late 1980s were a time of change and uncertainty in the Soviet Union, with the policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika restructuring, transforming society. These factors, combined with increased exposure to Western science fiction and UFO lore, could have influenced the perceptions and reports of those involved. Excalibur, the legendary sword of King Arthur, is one of the most iconic symbols in Arthurian legend, representing kingship, divine right, and heroism. Its name, believed to be derived from either Latin or Welsh, has come to signify more than just a powerful weapon wielded by King Arthur and is now known worldwide. The story of Excalibur is most famously linked to two key Arthurian legends: the Sword in the Stone and the Lady of the Lake. The former, popularized in the 12th century poem by Robert de Boron, describes how Arthur, a seemingly unknown boy, pulls the sword from a stone, proving his divine right to rule Britain. According to this legend, only the true heir to the throne could achieve this feat, and Arthur's success marked him as the rightful king. However, in other traditions, Excalibur is not the sword drawn from the stone. This version states that the sword in the stone, which Arthur initially uses, shatters in battle, prompting the wizard Merlin to lead Arthur to the Lady of the Lake. She presents him with Excalibur, a magical sword with supernatural powers. Excalibur is often depicted as having extraordinary qualities, with some traditions emphasizing that its blade could blind enemies with its brilliance, or that it granted invincibility to its wielder. Its scabbard, rather than the sword itself, was considered even more powerful in some accounts. According to some legends, Arthur was told that as long as he had the scabbard, he could not be mortally wounded. Another significant aspect of Excalibur is its connection to water, a recurring theme in Celtic mythology, where lakes and rivers often serve as entrances to the other world. The sword's delivery by the Lady of the Lake and its return to the waters upon Arthur's death reinforces the idea that Arthur's reign was divinely sanctioned, As he lay dying after the Battle of Camlin, his famous final battle, Arthur instructed one of his most trusted knights to return Excalibur to the lake. According to legend, this knight, who differs depending on the telling, was tempted to keep Excalibur for himself, but eventually threw it back into the water. While Excalibur is widely regarded as a product of medieval romance, it may draw from earlier myths. Some scholars believe it shares characteristics with swords in Celtic mythology, such as the Irish sword Caladbolg. These swords often carried similar magical traits, such as unbreakable blades and the ability to vanquish enemies effortlessly. The search for the historical Excalibur often revolved around finding a real-life basis for the legendary sword of King Arthur to increase a British ruler's legitimacy. Notably, in 1191, the historical Excalibur was supposedly discovered at Glastonbury Abbey. However, rather than keeping this sword in Britain, Richard the Lionheart gave it as a gift to King Tancred of Sicily, a Norman ruler of Sicily and distant relation of Richard. Unfortunately, King Tancred died very soon after in 1194, and the fate of this version of Excalibur remains entirely unknown, having been lost for over 800 years. Seriously, Tancred, you had one job and you messed it all up. When someone gives you Excalibur, you put that somewhere safe. The Kidding Vor, also referred to as the snake-eating cow, is a cryptid that is said to inhabit the forests of Cambodia and Vietnam. This elusive animal has been a subject of fascination for cryptozoologists and local folklore, often described as a cow-like creature with distinctive spiral-shaped horns. Despite the ongoing debate about its existence, the Kidding Vor has gained international attention due to the controversy surrounding its classification and the alleged physical evidence found over the years. The creature is typically portrayed as a bovid, similar in appearance to a small cow or buffalo, with notable twisting horns measuring around 45 centimeters in length. These horns, which resemble corkscrews, are a key feature of the animal's reported morphology. The fur of the Kidding Vor is said to be spotted, adding to its unusual and distinctive look. According to some accounts, the animal is believed to possess carnivorous tendencies, particularly a preference for snakes, which gave rise to its nickname, snake-eating cow. The first major report regarding the Kidding Vor came in the 1990s. Wolfgang Peter and Andreas Feiler, zoologists from Germany, discovered what were believed to be the horns of an unknown bovid species in a market in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. This led to the formal classification of the creature as Pseudonavibo spiralis in 1994. Notably, this is one of very few cryptids which has been given a formal scientific name which has been accepted by the mainstream scientific community, at least for a time. Following this, other horn specimens were collected and analyzed, further fueling speculation that this was indeed a newly discovered animal. However, controversy quickly arose as researchers began to question the authenticity of these horns. Several scientists examined the horns and found that they might have been manipulated or even fabricated from domestic cattle horns. DNA analyses conducted on these horns yielded conflicting results, with some studies suggesting that the horns came from cattle rather than a unique species. Despite these findings, the possibility of the Kidding Vor being a real, albeit rare species, has not been completely dismissed. The International Union for Conservation of Nature once listed the Kidding Vor as a critically endangered species, though it later removed the species from its database due to the lack of evidence. If the Kidding Vor does exist, it would likely be extremely endangered due to habitat destruction and overhunting in Cambodia and Vietnam. Deforestation and human encroachment have decimated populations of large mammals in these regions, and the same factors would pose a significant threat to any surviving members of this elusive species. The potential discovery of the Kidding Vor would have important implications for the cryptozoology community as well. The discovery of an entirely new large species living in a fairly densely populated area would provide some potential evidence of existence of other large cryptids in similar circumstances. The chronovisor is an alleged time-viewing device reportedly developed by Father Pellegrino Ernetti, an Italian priest and exorcist, during the mid-20th century. According to Ernetti, this device enabled users to view and hear events from the past, like a television tuning into events throughout history. The most sensational of these claims includes observations of Jesus Christ's crucifixion and other biblical events. Other notable historical figures and events, such as speeches by Roman Senator Cicero and the end of Julius Caesar, were also noted to be viewable. Ernetti's description suggests that the chronovisor worked through the use of specialized antennae made from mysterious metals, capable of capturing sound and light waves across the spectrum. This technology supposedly allowed it to record and project past events onto a screen, making it less of a time travel device and more of a viewer into history. Despite the intriguing nature of Ernetti's claims, they have been met with significant skepticism and controversy. Critics have pointed out that no concrete evidence of the device's existence has ever been presented aside from the photographs. I've attached an image of Jesus in his final days, reportedly taken through the chronovisor by Ernetti himself. Some say that this image resembles a statue or a painting, but I'll leave that up to your interpretation. The debate over the chronovisor's existence is further complicated by the Vatican's secretive stance on the matter. While the Church has not confirmed the existence of such a device, a Vatican decree from 1988 threatening excommunication for its use. This has fueled speculation about its possible reality and potential misuse. However, skeptics noted that the decree may also have been issued to prevent deterioration of church doctrine. In his later years, amidst growing skepticism, Ernetti allegedly recanted his claims, stating that the stories about the chronovisor were fabricated. His confession, however, is disputed, and some believe it was coerced by the Church, or factions within the Church, that wanted to suppress this wondrous technology. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy just jumping in here one more time, reminding you to like, subscribe, and share. Also remember, if you want to take it to the next level, you can do so with the Patreon or with a YouTube membership. Benefits include occasional early access to new content and shoutouts, and just generally helping the channel continue. Le Loyon is a mysterious figure whose sightings have intrigued and frightened residents of western Switzerland, particularly near the village of Mals. The name Le Loyon is not directly translatable in a meaningful way, as it appears to be a unique identifier or name given to this figure without a clear literal meaning in French. First reported around 2003, this individual is typically seen wearing a vintage gas mask and a long dark cloak. Le Loyon has been observed for over a decade, with sightings peaking in the early 2010s. The figure was first documented in local folklore, but gained wider attention when photographs and videos began surfacing online. An amateur photographer captured the first known image of Le Loyon in September 2013, which was later published by the Swiss news outlet Le Matin. Witnesses consistently described Le Loyon as a tall figure, over 6 feet in height, clad in heavy-duty boots, and an antique gas mask that conceals their face entirely. Despite the eerie outfit, Le Loyon has never been reported to engage in violent or aggressive behavior. The true identity and motives of Le Loyon remain a mystery. Some believe Le Loyon is a hermit living a reclusive life in the woods, avoiding human contact in modern society. This theory suggests the figure might be a survivalist or someone who has chosen to live off the grid. Another popular theory is that they might be suffering from a mental illness, which compels them to dress in such an unusual manner. Authorities have expressed interest in finding this individual, partly out of concern for their well-being and to address the fear they instill in the community. Some speculate that Leloyon could be hiding a physical disfigurement or skin condition. The gas mask and cloak could serve as a means to conceal their appearance and avoid unwanted attention. Given the figure's ghostly demeanor and the lack of clear logical explanations, some locals and enthusiasts believe Leloyon might be a supernatural entity. One local resident described an encounter where Leloyon emerged silently from the woods, only to stare briefly and then walk away without a word. Another incident involved a family who stumbled upon the figure, causing the children to flee in terror. In another story, Leloyon was seen clutching a bouquet of flowers, adding a bizarrely gentle twist to the otherwise frightening encounters. The Monopoly Man, often envisioned with a monocle, has sparked widespread discussion due to the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where a large group of people shares a false memory. Despite the common belief, the Monopoly Man, officially known as Uncle Pennybags, has never been officially depicted with a monocle since his debut in 1936. Proponents of this Mandela effect state that two realities merged, one where the Monopoly Man wears the monocle, and another one where the Monopoly Man does not. In popular culture, there are only a couple of stock characters that are associated with the usage of the monocle. The first, which does not apply to the Monopoly Man, is that of a stern German aristocrat from the ancient aristocracy. This image is generally associated with World War I. The second is the American blue-blooded aristocrat, often depicted wearing a top hat and carrying a cane. While this stock character has long since fell out of fashion, the popular Planters Peanut mascot lives on, donning a monocle, top hat, and cane. Werewolves are creatures who transform from human to wolf, often under the influence of the full moon. The word werewolf itself originates from an Old English term which combines were, meaning man, and wolf, meaning, well, I'll let you guess what that term means, to describe a man-wolf hybrid. Stories of such transformations are spread across many cultures, but they are most commonly associated with European folklore, dating back to at least the medieval period. The belief in werewolves, or lycanthropes, is intertwined with ideas of magic, curses, and religious interpretations, particularly in the Christian tradition. In early narratives, becoming a werewolf was often portrayed as a form of divine punishment. For instance, the legend of the werewolves of Ossory in Ireland tells of a clan cursed by St. Patrick for their defiance, transforming them into wolves for 7 years as retribution. In medieval Europe, werewolves were frequently associated with the devil and accused of malevolent acts. The peak of werewolf hysteria coincided with the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries. Werewolves were often mentioned in these trials, particularly in parts of Germany, France, and Switzerland. Like witches, individuals accused of lycanthropy were subject to brutal interrogations and executions. However, the trials for werewolves were far less frequent than those for witches. The lore of werewolves includes a wide range of regional variants. In France, for instance, the loup-garou was a prominent figure in local folklore. These werewolves were believed to be individuals who transformed into wolves as a punishment for their sins, or due to a curse. The idea of transforming into a wolf, by a curse or bite, particularly under the full moon, became a common trope, especially in later interpretations and adaptations of the myth. In fiction, werewolf stories have been a popular topic for almost a millennium now. Medieval tales like Bisclaveret, a 12th century narrative by Marie de France, laid the foundation for modern werewolf literature. In this now little known but highly influential story, a nobleman transforms into a wolf, but retains his human intelligence and character. Modern portrayals often depict werewolves as tragic figures, cursed to uncontrollably transform during the full moon and struggling to retain their humanity. Modern sightings of werewolves, though rare, have been reported around the world, particularly in rural areas. In the United States, for example, Michigan's Dogman has been a subject of fascination since the late 19th century. Further, skinwalkers, while not being werewolves in the strict sense, are said to sometimes transform themselves into wolves or dog-like creatures. Yeah Yeah Beavis 1 is a rumored game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, first mentioned in a mail-order video game service called Play It Again. It was subsequently referenced in a June 1989 issue of Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine. Subsequent appearances of the game were noted in the Play It Again listings for July, August, and September 1989, with no further mentions of the game at any point. Despite extensive efforts, no physical copy, gameplay footage, or credible mention in any official gaming publication was found. The lack of evidence led many to believe it was a hoax, a typo, or a copyright trap. In 2021, a user from the Lost Media Wiki forums, known as Stinter Galactic, had a discussion with Neil Levin, a co-founder of Play It Again. During this conversation, Levin confirmed that they intentionally added false listings to identify imitators. While it's now generally accepted that no such game ever existed, the urban legend grew throughout the years, and a game studio made an unofficial sequel. I'll let you guess what they called it. Also, I suppose if it was never a real game to begin with, it's not really an unofficial sequel, is it? The Akanami, a creature stemming from Japanese folklore, is recognized chiefly for its unique habit, licking filth and grime from unkempt bathrooms and derelict buildings. This creature, which translates literally to filth licker, is depicted traditionally as an impish entity with a long protruding tongue, dedicated to cleaning away dirt and dust, supposedly with poisonous saliva. It's capable of fitting in one's hand, with greasy hair, webbed limbs, and a particularly long, sticky tongue used for its unique diet of muck and grime. Often depicted as a deterrent for poor hygiene, particularly among children, the creature carries an underlying message promoting cleanliness and sanitation. This creature's preference for inhabiting filthy areas like dirty restrooms or abandoned homes turns it into a peculiar custodian of cleanliness, ironically signifying neglect and the dire need for hygiene in its chosen environments. Despite its unsettling appearance and habits, the Akaname is not typically seen as dangerous, but rather as an eerie reminder of the importance of not letting things get dirty. Historically, the Akaname's origin might tie back to superstitions surrounding the public bathhouses of ancient Japan, where poor hygiene could lead to disease outbreaks. In Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Boy Scout Lane is a road that has terrified locals for generations due to a particularly disturbing urban legend associated with it. At the heart of Boy Scout Lane's lore is a tragic event purported to have occurred many years ago, involving a troop of Boy Scouts. The narrative, though varied in detail, consistently speaks to a disastrous outing that led to the untimely demise of the Scouts under different harrowing circumstances. One version tells of a catastrophic fire, ignited accidentally, engulfing the Scouts in flames during a camping trip. Another recounts a chilling scenario where the group's bus meets a tragic end, leading to their collective demise. Further, a more sinister variant suggests they fell victim to their trusted scoutmaster, who ended them all in a horrific event. What follows these alleged tragic events is a series of paranormal phenomena attributed to the spirits of the deceased scouts. Visitors and locals alike report an array of supernatural experiences. Some report spectral lantern lights seen bobbing through the darkness. Others report eerie sounds of footsteps and breaking branches from unseen entities. But perhaps the most chilling sight is the sight of a ghostly bus, reminiscent of the one the scouts were last seen alive on during their trip. These latter accounts often include ghostly apparitions of the boys themselves, wandering the woods in eternal unrest. Despite its gripping narrative, there is no historical evidence supporting the initial tragic story associated with Boy Scout Lane. My investigations into public records and historical accounts have failed to unearth any incidents involving a Boy Scout troop meeting a tragic fate in the area. And let's be honest, if any of these supposed events happened, there would be numerous local and national news articles about this event at the time. This strongly suggests the tales associated with Boy Scout Lane are purely the product of local folklore. Skeptics have suggested that the most likely explanation is that sightings are the result of mass hysteria events or simply the power of suggestion when in the region. At any rate, Boy Scout Lane is an extremely eerie and isolated road, which, when the urban legend overlay is added, could easily give rise to some spooky occurrences. The theory known as Dark Side of the Rainbow claims a fascinating synchronicity between Pink Floyd's 1973 album The Dark Side of the Moon and the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. According to enthusiasts, when the album is played alongside the film, numerous moments of apparent correspondence between the two emerge, creating a unique viewing and listening experience. This phenomenon was first brought to widespread attention through a detailed examination by journalist Charlie Savage, who coined the term "dark side of the rainbow." His findings sparked a surge of interest, leading to extensive analysis by fans. I found that 3 particular moments are routinely cited as proof of this theory. As the song "Breathe" plays, Dorothy is seen performing a tightrope-like walk. The lyrical mention of balance coincides with her careful steps, suggesting a thematic link between the song's message and Dorothy's actions at that moment. Time and Dorothy running. The transition in the film to Dorothy running away from home to save Toto aligns with the line, "No one told you when to run," from the song Time. This lyrical and visual pairing enhances the thematic resonance of the moment, with the concept of time and urgency reflected both in song and on screen. Brain Damage and the Scarecrow's scene. The album's track, Brain Damage, starts playing almost simultaneously with the movie's If I Only Had a Brain scene. The song's lyrics, mentioning lunacy and paths, seem to mirror the Scarecrow's erratic behavior and quest for a brain. Despite these connections, Pink Floyd and their production team have consistently denied any intentional connection. David Gilmour, Pink Floyd's guitarist and vocalist, has dismissed the theory as the product of someone with, quote, "too much time on their hands." Nick Mason, the band's drummer, humorously suggested that the album was actually based on The Sound of Music rather than The Wizard of Oz. Alan Parsons, an engineer on The Dark Side of the Moon, echoed these sentiments, stating that any synchronicity was coincidental. In favor of this, Parsons sought to end the theory once and for all by highlighting the technical impossibility of intentionally syncing the album with the film. According to Parsons, given the lack of VCRs at the time of the album's production, they could not have been synced up. That said, I know this is another urban legend that people will swear by, and let's be honest, this one actually has some good points in its favor. But if Dark Side of the Rainbow were actually true, why would no one in the band have admitted to it at any point in the 50-plus years since the release of the album? Also, I just did some quick math in my head and realized we're much further from the release of Dark Side of the Moon than Dark Side of the Moon was from The Wizard of Oz when released. The haunting of 30 East Drive in Pontefract, England, is among the most infamous poltergeist cases in the UK. The story began in August 1966, when Joe and Jean Pritchard, along with their children Philip and Diane, moved into the seemingly idyllic house. Shortly after moving in, the Pritchards reported cold gusts of wind despite the warm weather, mysterious white powder falling from nowhere, and pools of water appearing inexplicably in the kitchen. These occurrences marked the beginning of their ordeal with what would later be known as the Black Monk. Over time, the disturbances grew more violent, with objects being thrown, loud bangs resonating through the house, and physical attacks on family members. The entity's name, the Black Monk, derives from its appearance, a shadowy figure in a black habit, resembling a monk. According to some sources, investigations into the house's history revealed that the site was near the location of a 16th century gallows, where a monk met his end. This historical connection led many to believe that the Black Monk's restless spirit was tied to these tragic events. Throughout the years, the Pritchards continued to experience relentless paranormal activity. Diane Pritchard, in particular, seemed to be a focal point of the hauntings, experiencing hair pulling and being thrown from her bed. The family sought help from various sources, including the Catholic Church, which performed several exorcisms. Unfortunately, these attempts only seemed to aggravate the spirit, resulting in more aggressive manifestations such as upside-down crosses appearing on walls. Paranormal investigators delved into the house's dark history, reinforcing the theory that the Black Monk was a tormented spirit from the nearby historical sites. Despite extensive investigations, including sessions with paranormal teams and ghost hunters, no definitive explanation for the phenomena at 30 East Drive has been found. The haunting of 30 East Drive has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and even films. The 2012 movie When the Lights Went Out dramatizes the Pritchard family's experiences, bringing the story to a wider audience. Today, the house remains a popular destination for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts. The current owner has continued to open the house to visitors, despite the continued reports of supernatural occurrences. Personally, I think it's nice to see a haunted house that's just a run-of-the-mill post-war duplex. The Philadelphia Experiment is an event said to have taken place in 1943 at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. It allegedly involved the USS Eldridge, a cannon-class destroyer escort, which was purported to have been rendered invisible to the naked eye as part of an experiment involving electromagnetic fields. The tale was popularized through a series of letters from a man named Carl Allen to astronomer Morris K. Jessup. Further, the legend has been spread through subsequent books and a movie that dramatized the events. According to Allen's account, the experiment was a demonstration of Einstein's unproven unified field theory, claiming that the ship teleported from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia. The ship was then transported back to Philadelphia, leaving the crew affected in disturbing ways. Some reports included sailors becoming mentally unstable, suffering from severe nausea, or even being fused with the ship's structure. However, these accounts lack corroboration and are dismissed by many as fantastical or outright fabrications. The origin of the story can be traced back to Jessup's correspondence with Allen in the mid-1950s, following the publication of Jessup's book on UFO propulsion. Critics and skeptics have pointed out numerous inconsistencies and the lack of physical evidence supporting the story. Records indicate that the USS Eldridge was not in Philadelphia at the time the experiment supposedly occurred. Some plausible theories for the basic version of the story include real degaussing experiments which were conducted by the U.S. Navy. These experiments theoretically made the ships invisible to magnetic anti-ship weaponry used by the Axis forces. Further investigation into Carl Allen, the man behind the claim initially, indicates that he made a career of spinning intricate stories. Despite all this, the Philadelphia experiment is still widely discussed as if it were a real event that took place, or at least as if it was an event that had some meaningful basis in reality. Unsinkable Sam, also known as Oscar during his time in German service, is one of the most interesting animal stories from World War II. This cat is said to have survived 3 shipwrecks, earning his legendary nickname. But before we delve deeper into Sam's story, it's necessary to consider what role cats played on ships. A ship's cat was a vital crew member traditionally kept on board vessels to control rodents. These cats help prevent damage to cargo, particularly food supplies, and protect the ship's structural integrity from gnawing pests. Rodents can also spread disease, so cats contribute to the overall health and safety of the crew. Additionally, ship's cats offer companionship to sailors, alleviating loneliness and boosting morale during long voyages. Further, their keen senses also serve as an informal early warning system for environmental changes or approaching dangers, adding another layer of security. But I digress. Let's get back to Unsinkable Sam. While the exact details of Sam's story have elements of myth and mystery, the core facts remain largely the same. Sam's journey began on the German battleship Bismarck, which was launched in 1939 and commissioned in 1940. Bismarck was one of the largest and most powerful battleships ever built by Germany. On May 18, 1941, Bismarck set sail on its first and only mission. During the Battle of the Denmark Strait on May 24, 1941, Bismarck engaged the British ships HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales. The engagement led to the sinking of Hood, but Bismarck was heavily damaged and eventually sunk 3 days later on May 27, 1941. Amidst the chaos, it is believed that Sam, a black and white cat, managed to survive. The story goes that Sam was found floating on a board by the British destroyer HMS Cossack. The sailors aboard Cossack took him in, and he quickly became the ship's mascot. Cossack continued its service, but on October 24, 1941, it was torpedoed by the German submarine U-563. The damaged ship was towed back to Gibraltar, but it sank 4 days later due to severe structural damage. Remarkably, Sam survived this ordeal as well and was found clinging to a piece of wreckage. He was then transferred to HMS Ark Royal, an aircraft carrier, but as you may have guessed, Sam's time on Ark Royal was short-lived. On November 14, 1941, Ark Royal was torpedoed by the German submarine U-81. Despite efforts to save the carrier, it sank the following day. Sam was again found floating on debris and was rescued. After this third shipwreck, Sam was given the name Unsinkable Sam. He was later transferred to HMS Legion and eventually retired to a seaman's home in Belfast. The story of Unsinkable Sam is not without its mysteries and skepticism. One of the main points of contention is the lack of concrete evidence and consistent records. While the tale is widely circulated and has become a popular wartime legend, there are no official naval records that confirm the presence of a cat named Sam on these ships. The story largely relies on anecdotal accounts and sailors' testimonies, which can sometimes be embellished over time. Another mystery surrounding Unsinkable Sam is his origin. Some versions of the story claim that Sam was originally named Oscar and was a ship's cat on Bismarck from the beginning. Others suggest that he was a stray picked up at some point before Bismarck's final voyage. Despite the uncertainties, the story of Unsinkable Sam has captured the imaginations of many. In the late 90s, Pokemon fever took over the world. captivating the hearts and minds of children, many of whom now enjoy the series with their own kids. A series of schoolyard and early internet rumors emerged that would become legendary in their own right. These were the tales of the Pokegods, mythical creatures said to be hidden within the game, far more powerful and elusive than any Pokemon listed in the official Pokedex. The origin of the Pokegods rumor can be traced back to the playgrounds and early internet forums where players exchanged tips and tricks. Many of these rumors were backed up with the unerring authority of the quote-unquote Nintendo uncle. Every school in the 90s had at least one student who professed authority on Nintendo-related topics, due to an unseen uncle who quote-unquote worked for Nintendo. But back to Pokegods. Players claimed that certain actions, often elaborate and obscure, could unlock these supreme beings. Names like Pika-Blue and Mew3 circulated, with each supposed Pokegod having its own backstory and set of powers that far exceeded the game's standard limits. What made the Pokegods rumor so compelling was the grain of truth at its core. The rumors of one Pokegod, Mew, turned out to be true. If Mew could be hidden within the game's data, what else was waiting to be discovered? This question fueled the fire of speculation and the hunt for Pokegods. These rumors were not just idle schoolyard chatter. They had a tangible impact on how players engaged with the game. Many wasted countless valuable childhood hours attempting to decode the secrets to unlocking these legendary creatures. Players often followed convoluted steps that ranged from performing specific in-game actions to exploiting supposed glitches. The mystery of the Pokegods comes from the time in which the rumor spread. In the late 90s, internet access was not common, yet everyone who was there at the time remembers the same Pokegod rumors floating around their schoolyard. It seems that every school had one kid who had a Pika-Blue on his Game Boy at home. And no, you couldn't see it because his parents didn't allow friends to come over, or he wasn't allowed to leave the house with the Game Boy, amongst other excuses. Okay, so that's it for the second part of the Urban Legends Iceberg. Let me know in the comments if there are any other specific urban legends you'd like to see me address in the next part of this series. This is such a broad topic, so feel free to suggest anything you think may fit from video game urban legends to something that's only known in your town or city. If you liked this video, please do me a huge favor and click like and subscribe, and also click the share button and send it to anyone who you think may enjoy it. Shout out to my patrons Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Courtney Hammett, Out of Gray's Mind, Cap, Dionysus, Silba Rose, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemous.